I don't want to steal a spot, but it's Wednesday night. And you know what else that means? That's right. We live. We here. We in the house. We got Geek Commander in the house. We got a lot of stuff to catch up on.
Thank you for everybody who stood on hold there for an extended few minutes.
Yeah, we just juggling things around. You know, we got a crack operation. We got 0.0 interns to help us to adjust everything.
You can fast forward that on the rewatch.
Yeah, there you go.
No problem. We're going to put a marker for you.
Yeah, we're going to
jump right over to the next part.
Have all the timestamps here. But I feel like it was a busy week getting here. It was an emotional day yesterday. We're going to talk a little bit about RIP to Dem Boys, our favorite chicken farmers from Sandy Fork. And then we had some Kevin Nash stuff that got a little bit scary online. But that's going to be our wrestling portion. But Pedro Pascal had a big week.
This is the week of Pedro.
This is the vote for Pedro week for sure. Between The Last of Us being the second highest rated HBO show.
No, it just passed.
It just passed it today.
It did pass it.
Introduce our guest, by the way.
Yeah, Geek Commander in the house. What's up?
How's it going?
Rose, how are you? Welcome back. There's no way. I know we had to juggle some stuff to get you here, but I was like, we can't launch The Last of Us without Brian. You were so psyched about it last time, and would love to hear if it lived up to the expectations, because clearly the ratings are saying that it did live up to the expectations. So hopefully it lived up to your expectations. And then the very next night, on the last of Super Wildcard weekend for the NFL, we get the Mandolorian trailer drop, which also delivered on all fronts. I think it really did fire everybody up. Can Pedro Pascal do any wrong?
I'm not sure. But Mike, by the way, we do cams at the end of the song.
Oh, cams are coming. Yeah,
at the end of the song, you'll see me strategically hit the dissolve button.
Yeah.
On the last note of the song. Just watch for that.
Lubes the pipes. But I was trying to pitch somebody on Pedro Pascal stealing the show from Nicolas Cage and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
He 100% did.
He stole the show. How easy is it to steal the show? That's like going on after Shawn Michaels and I'm going to steal the show, and then succeeding.
Well, when that movie was out, remember we talked about it. We were talking about. When I saw that, I was like, Pedro Pascal is a star. Yeah. He's a mega star.
He is,
because he just out Nicolas Cage. He
did. That's what I was trying to pitch someone, and they're like, "Oh, Nicolas Cage is too much." It's like Nicolas Cage is the straight man in this movie. He's not the comedy relief at all.
He is, and he's so good in that movie.
Yes, the crystals are in. No, he's great in that movie. It just the way he pitches Paddington 2. Like, how many people went and saw Paddington 2 after that? That's a double feature right there.
Absolutely, man. He's just right now. He's just like killing it right now.
Yeah, so
the two biggest shows on TV probably right now, and he's the lead in both shows. Has that ever happened in history? Was MacGyver on two shows at once? Same time? Was Magnum PI on another show at the same time?
You're right. This is a first time. And just think, this was only a couple years ago when the whole controversy of I think he wanted to take his mask off on The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And supposedly he walked off. But now there's no way anyone else can do Mando except for Pedro Pascal.
I'm starting to think that maybe that was some dirt sheet made up stuff. Maybe.
Yeah.
What do you think? The internet dirt sheet, the movie dirt sheets.
Yeah, in movie dirt sheets.
Yeah.
So
it's a good story.
It's a great story.
And there's credence added to that now because they dumped the gas masks in Last of Us. The thing. Here's the thing, B Rose, just so you know, I know last time you were here we talked about the trailer, and I was not looking forward to that show at all for me. I was just like, I'm not in the mood for another post-apocalypse show. And
you're not really a gamer either.
I'm not a gamer, and it looked like Walking Dead. I'm just like, no, I don't know if I'd be into that. Whatever. So I watched the pilot, and since the pilot, I've been consuming video game clips.
It pulls you in.
I fell asleep to Last of Us video game clips last night.
And watching cutscenes.
Yeah.
Because there's a ton of...
What's like a 3-hour movie on its own.
Yeah, it's so cinematic.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were going to have that AR, VR, that immersive game, and in The Last of Us, that one is the VR without it. It pulls you in. It just pulls you in so much. And just the little things.
Yeah.
Just like her talking little things about the character that have nothing to do with the game and just character establishment just puts it over the top.
Yeah, and now I get it. I get why someone would want to turn that into a movie.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting how I just didn't realize how much of an immersive experience it was. The way it plays out, well, because I just watched the recordings, and they edit out the actual gameplay. You know what I mean? Which I wonder if gameplay would annoy me. Maybe can they just make a version of the game where you just hit forward button
that you don't play?
Yeah, you just hit forward or repeat, and that's the only options you have.
Autopilot.
Because I don't want to play the levels, but I did like watching the video game story.
Well, what's funny too is like, you know, I think I said it the last time I was here too. You know, my wife and I, we bought our PS3 just to play this game. Because I'm not a huge gamer, but one of my favorite games in the old days on my PS2 was Metal Gear Solid. And one of the fantastic things about that game is the stealth mode. You have to like sneak around, and that was what was being pitched. A lot of Last of Us is kind of like that kind of stealth mode stuff, and it is. The whole game is very stealth, survival, things like that. So I was already jonesing for it anyway, so we bought our PS3 just to have that game because it was an exclusive. And then just playing the opening of the game, it was just like, holy shit, I'm in. It was nice enough seeing that it was taking place in our area here in Austin.
Right.
I popped for that when I saw it on the show. I was going to text my brother. I was like, look. But like, yeah, that was great.
And that's one of the nice things too, is like the opening of the show, even it's almost shot for the game. And there's a couple things here and there. I mean, you get to see some of the extra kind of like backstory and stuff, but some of the scenes, especially the drive out when they're leaving, is literally just shot for shot.
That was eerie. And that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, video game movies and projects have a dicey history. But this one, they did manage to, like Mario was saying, lift these cutscenes and put them into the show. And rather than saying, we're going to reinvent and just trying to take the ideas, like, no, we're just going to take what works and put it in there. And they succeeded, right? Don't you feel like that was a little bit risky, that there were people who are going to just say, you just lifted the cutscenes and put them on television? But yeah, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and they've been talking about it too. You know, I've literally watched the episode 3 times already.
That's crazy.
I'm like at I'm in a 2.2 kind of. Because I've watched it multiple times, but in pieces.
Yeah, and I've gone through and because I want to find those Easter eggs that they're kind of just threading through there. I think the thing that the show has going for it, is that, you know, Neil Druckmann is, you know, the guy who basically helped create the game, is the creative director on the show. And you have Craig Mazin, who directed Chernobyl, which is a fantastic show. But they're both coming at it from different places of love for the property, because Neil, obviously, this is his game. He loves it. He wants to make sure that everything is done properly. And Craig Mazin was a fan of the game already. Loved the game even before he started doing his own show. And they have a quick little story where he talked about going to HBO, and they were like, well, Chernobyl was great. What do you want to do next? And they were talking with Sony, and Sony gave them like a list of games, like, hey, these are some of the games. Would you maybe want to adapt one? And he looked on the list and he goes, Last of Us isn't on here. And they're like, yeah, well, they're kind of wanting to make their own movie. And he goes, that's fine, but then, you know, I don't want anything to do with that. And then when it came out where he could actually possibly do it, he jumped at the chance because he was such a fan of the game. So you have these two artistic, creative forces who are passionately in love with this story and this game running the show. So they have the ability to know what's going to work and what's not going to work and where they need to add some stuff in and take stuff off. But they've pretty much said, like, you know, so much of that story, so much of converting this into a television show is finding those story beats that are so impactful and, you know, making sure that you cut those in. You can get rid of a lot of the extraneous stuff, like a lot of the action in the game, which you have to have action to keep gamers,
keep the gamers
flowing.
Engaged.
But you don't need, in a show, you need characterization, you need plot. And so especially in the opening, they were able to kind of go through and pull in some more plot that isn't in the games and kind of give some more backstory to give you a little more information about where these characters and who they are and where they're going, to kind of set that up instead of having to, you know, in the game you spend the first hour or two learning how to throw bricks and how to crouch and sneak and all that kind of stuff. And with this, you're just pushed straight into it. So you kind of have to have those vegetables to kind of get people going.
I loved their establishment, which wasn't part of the game, was the flashback to the 1960s game show.
Oh, yes.
With Big Head and the guy from The Mummy.
That's the first thing I said is it was Big Head. It was the guy, I hate that I don't know his name. I think it's Hugh something from The Mummy, who was also in Spartacus.
Yep.
And then the other guy is he's from Twilight. He's from Peacemaker. So I thought that's my wife's biggest bane is when I'll watch a TV show and I'm like, oh, so that's from that person. That person's from that show. But yeah, Big Head was the first one I saw. I was like, oh, it's Big Head.
But man, it reminded me of, and there's a lot, I love Watchmen, the book, but I did love the movie. I was okay with the cut, and it was something about the way they established that time period. It's just the little things, right? The mustard yellow furniture and the doctors talking about a pandemic as they're smoking.
Were folks smoking? I didn't know.
They were smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were smoking. So I was perfect. And the biggest adjustment, which everyone's talking about, right? This is a fungus, right? Which it's not, or it's the way it's passed in the show is different than the way it's passed in the game.
Well, they haven't shown 100% so far, so we're only one episode in, so we really haven't gotten into the full thing of it. So in the game, it's spread by a number of things. If you are attacked by the infected, of course, but then you can also get it through spores, and that's the big thing is, are we going to deal with the spores that are in the game, which is why they use the masks and whatnot. So that's kind of the main two ways it's done in the game. I like them doing the 1968 kind of setup. And, they have a podcast right now where Troy Baker, who played Joel in the game, is doing an after-show podcast with, the creators.
Is he really?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Great. I saw there's some sort of after-show podcast on YouTube, yeah.
I listened to it. It's really good. And one of the things they talked about specifically was why choosing to set that up. And the reason for it, especially because, we're currently in the middle of a pandemic as well, too, is they wanted to show that, these pandemics don't just happen. There's always a setup for it. It just needs a catalyst. Viruses are everywhere and things like that. And especially with the fungus and the fungi, that is already it's technically possible.
Right.
Is it likely? No. But it is technically possible. And they wanted to kind of have that set up to show that, someone, 30, 40 years ago knew this, was already warning us. And that kind of gives it a little bit more weight, especially when they do the nice bit of foreshadowing where he talks about what if the world got a little bit warmer, and you're just like, oh, that's us now. And so I thought it was a really great way of introducing the concept, because in the game you play that intro and you have it's still very good, but it's basically like a documentary telling you about the cordyceps, and it's like listening to a lot of news footage, and that's not visually interesting at all. It feels like you're back in school. So I thought that was a clever way of conveying the information, but giving it a nice little tonal starting point for the show.
It's tough what you're talking about, and I love it in gameplay when you have to listen to news clips, and there's something about it helps already kind of create a vibe, but in a series or a movie, I thought it would be a little bit tougher, because at that point you're focusing on the performers. You're not listening to that background. So I think when you guys are now benefiting, going back a couple of times, and now you're hearing the stuff that they're talking about in the background. I saw one breakdown of just and it was just a countdown to how many times they were almost infected because, and then it was stopped, and it had something to do with the infected flour, and they're why she didn't eat the cookies, and then the neighbors offered them biscuits, and then they try to make pancakes, but they were at a mix, and at that point they were saying the flour was infected. So if any of those moments would have happened, they would have been infected, and then it's literally game over. And then it ended on a joke. It's this is why you should be gluten-free. But it was it was such a little thing, and going back, and I think these Easter eggs are paying off for not only the people who play the game, but you see how rich this show is by going back and saying, no, there's layers to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're sowing a lot of seeds for what's coming too. I liked where they left it off. And originally it was supposed to be 2 episodes. So this whole first episode was technically supposed to be 2. And
it's long. It's 81 minutes.
Yeah, and the first episode was going to end.
That's the first Last of Us movie, technically.
Yeah. Well, the first episode was going to end right when we cut to Joel, at the burning bodies pit. That was going to be kind of like the end of the first episode, and then leading into the second one. And they kind of realized, the catalyst of the game and the catalyst of the the show is not when Sarah, his daughter, dies. Spoiler alert! But if you're watching, you know. But that's not the catalyst. The catalyst is meeting Ellie, and they kind of knew like we can't end this episode without them meeting yet. So that's kind of why they made the decision to kind of change that and make it one episode.
Yeah, and it was a long way in before you got to that. So if you came in kind of cold, that's a pretty big moment. But then again, I mean, that's what shows do. Like the end of Game of Thrones, when you think the main guy is going to be beheaded, and then you're like, where is this going? The daughter being out of the equation quick, that is a huge, oh, snap, what's going to happen now? You're pulled in.
I think, just going back to episode length, I really think episode length of shows is out the window now. I think they should just make shows as long as they need to be.
Yeah.
If I would be cool if this was 3 episodes, 3 90-minute episodes, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
You know? That's old school. That's like, remember when you used to have like a movie of the week and it was 2 parts, play for 2 nights?
Oh, yeah.
Just do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the TV movie events, a lot of them were miniseries, were 2-night events.
Yeah. Just bring that back. Play it all for 3 nights. Have everybody talking about it for 3 nights in a row. But
I saw the hour and 20 minutes on the dial, and I'm like, oh, wow. They're going. This is, again, the other cinematic show from last year with Stranger Things doing that of just now you're having 8 movies for all intents and purposes.
Well, that's one of the benefits you have with streaming, and this is technically going to be on HBO, but HBO knows how to throw in like a 10-minute segment of something to kind of fill in the time. But when you are unhindered by traditional television, you can basically, whatever your story is, that's what it is. You're not confined to, it has to be 42 minutes so we can plug in these 18 minutes of commercials and get your hour in. You can pretty much do whatever you want. And I think that wisely they're letting the creators, like, if you have a 2-hour story, you know what? Let's do it. If it totally all fits, make it 1 episode. We're streaming. We don't care.
Yeah, and it works.
Yeah.
I'm not going to derail us. We're definitely going to continue to talk about it. But B Rose, we got that close up, and I would be remiss if we didn't show some of our new swag that you actually brought in studio.
He's been wearing it the entire time.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So if we get a close up,
I got it. It's up.
Oh, you got it. Hey, look at that. So we do have. Look at that hat. That is a sweet hat with that logo that was designed by our friend the Geek Commander. So you can get it on a hat, you can get it on a sticker, or you can get it on a beanie. Boom, boom, boom. Now, this is great. I'm all about beanies too. Although I do all about the trucker hats as well. So B-Rose, thank you. I mean, we know you're the marketing genius because you are. I think you work so well at this because you're a collector yourself, and like, hey, what would I like? Those are the best creators, right? Cooks that you don't see a cook like, I don't eat my own food. Like if you're going to be a cook. So I don't know if that's something you've always been like into collecting like that and like your whole life or.
Really, since I kind of entered into adulthood, mainly because I grew up poor. So we never really had anything. I had a few toys here and there, but we didn't really have the money to buy a lot of stuff. And so that's why when, turning 16, 18, I have my own disposable income and I don't have to worry about paying like all the major bills yet. I was just like, okay, this is what I've always wanted. And that's why I still have people ask me like why I collect toys. I'm like, it was because I couldn't have them when I was a kid. So now I can. I have the money. I can do what I want with it.
That's great. So Setting Dust Entertainment makes me think of the variant Captain America, Captain Azteca. The Aztec Empire never fell. I'm not aware of that variant.
I didn't know that one. I knew there was like a Batman Aztec one. I never heard of a Captain America Aztec one. I gotta check that out.
Great. I remember on Super Friends El Dorado that he actually hid out in the Golden City.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, that's designed by B Rose. And if you are in Austin, we've been putting those stickers everywhere. We caught another one in the wild today, so that's good. We're getting there. But let's jump back into The Last of Us. So I think this is working for, like, obviously it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? And I think it stayed at that. I think it's because you're pulling in the new fans, you're pulling in the Pedro Pascal fans, but you're honoring the game. I haven't heard anybody who's a fan of the game that's not a fan of this show yet, and I think it has a lot to do, obviously, with the show creator being in there, but it also has to do with a lot of familiar voices, right? So even the people that aren't playing the same characters they played in the game, they're still a part of the show, and I think there's that comfort level there. Like, what's the character who played the same character in the movie and the show? Is it Marlene?
Yeah, it's Marlene. Marlene is the same actress who did the voice and motion capture in the game, and now she's actually
doing that, and that has to help. I mean, that has to help. That just for the whole creating the mode.
Yeah, and honestly, that's been I wouldn't even say it's the hardest thing. It's just one of the most things that I notice a lot too. Is, I love Pedro, and I'm really enjoying Bella Ramsey. And I'm trying to disassociate myself from the game. I'm like, that doesn't sound... luckily, Pedro has done a great job of nailing that voice of Joel, because he does. He sounds incredibly, like, not just the pitch and everything like that, but the way he talks and things like that. It's very, very Joel. She's doing a little bit different with Ellie, but also, Ashley, she has such a distinctive voice to begin with that hearing someone else is automatically going to be a little jarring, but... luckily, they cast someone who has already shown that she can handle her shit when she did with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And so, like, once they made the casting announcement, I was like, that's going to be perfectly fine. It's going to be great to see. And so, it's not that she's doing a bad job. It's just I'm getting used to not hearing Ashley's voice and hearing Bella Ramsey's voice now instead.
I like how you did the, speaking of her, when we did your camera test, when you did your count to 10, you snuck that in there. And if you haven't seen the episode, you know what that... After 8, what comes after 8? Doesn't she seem like, because she stole the show when she was on Game of Thrones, and you forgot how long ago that was. Like, she aged up really fast. Like, she does look a lot older now.
Yeah, and I think that this puts her in, starring in 2 of the biggest. Well, I mean, judging by the reaction to this first episode, I don't see how this show is going to lose that just momentum and just throw it away. So this is I think this is definitely going to be kind of HBO's new kind of like must-see
They needed
show.
it.
And I think it comes along at a good time. And then, it's a treat because, that first game it changed gaming.
Yes.
The way it did. And, there was a 5-year break in between the first and second game. And even the second game with all the controversies around it continued to change things. And so they're doing a smart thing of striking while the iron is hot too.
Yeah. I was inadvertently, before the show started, I'm anti-spoiler, which means people are going to throw spoilers at me. And I got spoiled on what happens on the second game and what the controversy. And we don't have to talk about it now, but I was really disappointed. But then it also got me thinking, knowing HBO and the position they're in now, they're in that same position they were in with Game of Thrones, and they're going to be in that same position with Lost. There's 2 games, and then there's some extra materials, right? That I don't know if they're like graphic novels.
Well, there's a DLC that came out.
The DLC
right. Came out and they kind of hinted at it a little bit in the first episode of the show with mentioning Riley, which the story of Ellie and Riley is kind of the DLC that you get.
DLC. Mm-hmm. They're going to get to the point where HBO is not going to be like 2 and done, right? They're going to want to get you try to get at least 5 seasons out of this is what I'm saying, even though there's not technically there's not 5 seasons of source material.
Well, the good thing is and they've pretty much said this first season is going to basically follow the first game. And they could probably stretch it out if they wanted to, but I think it's smart not doing that because so much of the game is a lot of repetitiveness. It's a lot of doing similar things in different areas, trying to sneak and, get around these people, get away from these people, kind of back and forth. So with this first season ending at the first game, the second game takes place and it's 5 years later. So there's a 5-year kind of gap in between that where we don't know what happened. And I feel personally that that's probably what they're going to do is because they also, they need to let Bella Ramsey age a little bit more because the Ellie in the second game is 5 years older, and that's a significant jump at that specific age, going from 13, 14 to 18, 19. That's a very impactful period, and the Ellie we meet in the first game is very different from the Ellie we meet in the second game, and so I think that gives them the kind of cushion to where they can go through and fill in that gap with a season or 2. And they can introduce new characters, they can introduce new threats, and kind of bridge the gap between the 2 before necessarily having to go into the second game.
There's no way, however this got started, The Last of Us pitch, before they decided to make this show, whoever is booking it, whoever's pitching it, what's the name of the show in there?
Well, Craig Mazin is the one who's directing the
Craig
show,
Mazin.
and then Neil Druckmann is the one who created the game.
But it's Craig Mazin who's probably writing the show. Yeah, he probably had to come into that meeting with 3 seasons planned out.
Automatically,
Not
right?
written, not scripts written, but he had to have 3 seasons planned out automatically. Just you can't put this kind of investment into a show and not plan 3 seasons already. You know what I mean?
Well, what's funny too is they talk about it on the podcast a little bit. They talked about the pitch meeting with HBO and the executives and how they did it. And Neil Druckmann is historically very kind of shy and kind of keeps to himself and whatnot. And when they went and made the pitch, they basically, Craig Mazin was like, I'll do most of the talking. Well, you can just kind of chime in when you want to. And he kind of just decided to not say anything. He just basically said, I pitched this hundreds and hundreds of times to movie studios and television studios and things like that. And so he kind of let Craig Mazin make the whole pitch. That way it's coming from someone with fresh eyes on it, who's not, not burdened, but not kind of just worn down by having to pitch the same thing over and over again. And they pretty much, greenlit it in the room, and Neil Druckmann didn't even have to say a word about it.
That speaks volumes when you got somebody at that level, because he was already in that zone where they're going to throw money at him because of Chernobyl. Like Chernobyl was such a big hit, so that just gave that, it just greased the wheels to get him in there. Just think the producer of Scary Movie 4 and Superhero Movie got us, saved us, and brought The Last of Us to TV. And I think he was he a writer on? He may have wrote Hangover 2, didn't he?
Craig Mazin?
No, yeah, Craig Mazin. I think he did write Hangover 2.
He might have. I'm not honestly 100% sure.
That's the worst one, really. I'm tuning out.
And The Huntsman, The Winter War. Yeah, he did.
Sidebar, did y'all get your free chicken nuggets today?
I didn't.
It was free chicken nugget day at McDonald's.
Why? 118?
I don't know. I don't know why.
It's National Chicken Nugget Day.
It's National Chicken Nugget. The chicken nugget was invented today.
Oh, that's smart.
40 years ago by Joe McNugget. He made the first chicken McNugget.
I'm pretty sure his ID says Joseph McNugget.
Yeah, it's Joseph Big M Little C Nugget.
It's Irish. Look it up. That's great. I love the free food giveaway days. Like, I love Ben and Jerry's free cone day. I'm there on 7-Eleven for free Slurpee day, so I feel slighted.
Chipotle used to give you food if you'd come in a costume, like on Halloween and stuff. You dress as a burrito.
Oh,
I don't think
man.
they do that so much anymore.
They cut us off.
Yeah.
Dang.
Too many male abusers. They just come in and be like, I'm a burrito, look.
No, sir, you're just fat.
Yeah. You're just wearing a white shirt.
With a name tag that says, hello, my name is Burrito.
Yeah.
That's just
So
lazy
you got to put
writing,
more
pal.
effort into that. We can't have that. Give away free burritos all the time.
Oh man, I gotta bring this back up. I'm gonna jump back again. Who played his daughter Sarah?
Nico Parker is Thandie Newton's daughter.
Yeah,
And I called, like, I wasn't familiar with her at first, but I'm watching it with my wife, and I even paused it, and she got mad at that. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's got to be Thandie Newton's daughter. It looks too much like her. And then I had to look it up. I'm like, yep, it's her. Okay, we can finish watching now.
that's incredible. That is. I mean, again, Westworld was fantastic, and she was one of the reasons why Westworld is fantastic. So she literally has HBO legacy, because that was going to be their next big show.
Dude, HBO keeps it in the family. Have you not noticed? Like, they like to work with actors that they work with. They like to keep their, the folks that do well for them around. Mm-hmm. They're pretty loyal, they do good. That's why they're able to. I mean, honestly, out of all the channels, network streaming channels, broadcast, everything, I feel like HBO has the highest quality control, man. They always put out quality stuff, even if it doesn't get over.
Yeah,
it's like,
they have the highest pedigree overall, I think. I mean, there's still going to be shows that don't hit with everybody. But I think if you look at overall, just in terms of the quality, they're the kind of the benchmark of, like, it's not TV, it's HBO kind of thing. Like, they've proven time and time and again that they care about making good stories, regardless of any bad shows. But I think more so even than the streaming ones, I think the streamers were so focused on just putting out as much as they could that you get some really great shows and you get some kind of mediocre ones. And HBO is kind of taking their time a lot with stuff like that, and just like, is this show going to be good? We think so. Well, then we're going to make it.
Yeah, they used to be guaranteed awards. They were like NBC in the Sunday nights on HBO was like Thursday nights for NBC. They became that must-see TV. Like you said, it's not TV, it's HBO. And you're talking about like streamers just spitting stuff out, right? Settling dust again. Thinking about how amazing the Halo series could have been while watching The Last of Us. Talk about a complete 180.
The Halo show that came out, I could not distinguish it from when folks used to make movies with Halo video footage. You remember that stuff where people would
like
just
red and blue? Yeah.
They would just re-edit the footage into, and not even red and blue, like independent filmmakers on the internet would just re-edit Halo footage or play out scenarios in Halo footage, and then it would be an original story. And I couldn't tell. The show looked the same as that to me.
It couldn't be argued that a lot of that stuff that you watched on YouTube was like miles better. And
Yeah.
Paramount's pretty decent with their track record, so I was really surprised. They must have just rushed this one out and just tried to get it.
I think so. But I mean, Paramount is balling right now. They had the best year of everybody. They had Top Gun, Paramount Network's taken off. They got Tulsa King. They got Yellowstone.
Yeah, no, they're doing really well.
They had Smile. They had a
Smile
bunch of
on
hits
there.
this year.
Again, their Twilight Zone remakes were always good. Clucky said Red and Blue is the true Halo series. He's not wrong.
Well, I felt bad too because like, ever since watching Orange is the New Black, he's such a bastard on that show. But he's porn stash, and he's so great at being such a bad guy. And then I watched him. He was in 13 Hours, the Benghazi movie that Michael Bay did, and he's fantastic in that. And when they announced that he was going to be in the Halo show, I'm like, cool, this will be a nice kind of front and center launch pad for him, because he's a very talented. And that's why I was so disappointed when the show was just not that great.
Yeah.
And kind of a little bit of a speed bump for him.
When you set your expectations high, they're like you said in SNL, they're it's 100 floors of fright. They can't all be winners. Speaking of taking their time with video games, like you said, this has been a long journey, and I think that kind of raises expectation. But it really got me thinking when it comes to striking while the iron's hot with video games. That doesn't exist. Like, even though Halo was rushed, I mean, the first Halo was 2001 before it came out, and we have two more kind of video game movie adaptations that we're waiting for. One is Minecraft, which has been talked about forever. And then you started thinking, well, is that going to take too long? Like, is Minecraft going to be out then? But it seems like Minecraft went away and then came back stronger. So maybe that generation who plays Minecraft is going to be ready for a movie, and it'll be like the Lego movie.
A Minecraft movie will destroy the world. Yeah. Do you understand? Once they let that thing out, it would be like what happens at the beginning of The Last of Us. Driving through town. That would be what happened if they released a Minecraft movie in theaters.
Block's just slowly taking over.
Chris Pratt is the lead Block guy.
And that's it. The creeper. Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. That would be the end of humanity.
I think Microsoft is waiting and they're sitting on it, but I think I was thinking about it. I was like, maybe they're waiting too long, but no, I think it's going to, no matter when it comes out, everybody who grew up playing Minecraft or the adults that started playing it, or it's just like intro into development, they will be ready for Minecraft when it comes out.
What Minecraft movie is not going to get tremendous heat from the entire world? How could you even satisfy anybody who's a Minecraft head? Right?
Yeah, no.
There's no way you can't make a Minecraft movie.
I don't know how they're going to do it.
The best way to do it is to make 100 Minecraft movies all at once.
Just let you make your own Minecraft
Yeah,
movie.
and exactly. Everybody makes their own Minecraft movie and releases it.
Yes.
And that's the Minecraft movie.
And it's funny, the other one I was going to talk about, Settling Dust, he beat me to it, is Five Nights at Freddy's. That's like a decade, and that was another game that everybody kept playing. And now we're a decade in, and they finally announced Matthew Lillard and Josh Hutcherson are going to be. So they just announced casting. And that didn't feel like it kept the same steam as, Minecraft is. But now we've already had Willy's Wonderland.
I was going to say
That's why it totally stole the thunder there.
Yeah. So did they just take the gas out of that balloon? Is it too late for a decade later?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't played Five Nights at Freddy's, but I mean, for a shoot, Willy's Wonderland was a it was a small movie They could even pay Nicolas Cage to do lines.
Yeah, that was great when you told me that. And it's like, would I have noticed if you didn't tell me that? It was like, all right, I'm going to do this movie, but I have no lines.
Like, I'll put it over for low budget filmmaking prowess. Amazing what they do. I love how Nicolas Cage, every time he fights a robot, he just goes in the back and gets a new staff shirt, a clean one, and puts it on.
That was so good.
That's
and
great.
then just go back to the
Gets his drink.
Yeah, we had no. It makes the the props person that it makes it real easy for them.
I really liked it. I really did dig it. I also saw the movie Mike's because I grew up loving the Banana Splits, and I don't know if you watched that Banana Splits movie. I think it was based in like South Africa. Like I was looking at the production company, but Willy's Wonderland definitely took the lead over the Banana Splits. But it took the steam out like everybody. So they're going to have to do something special to get Five Nights at Freddy's over. They're not going to get that Minecraft. Just come out when you're ready, and we're going to make it good.
Yeah.
Or The Last of Us will make it good.
Yeah,
both are very hypnotic to watch. I will give it that.
the videos of Five Nights at Freddy's, yeah, for sure.
Oh my! I just used to sit there, and my son would be playing for hours, and you just hear the uh-oh, and you just hear the no, and it just pulls you in. And then I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You just got to move these 5 screws at the same time," and you just watch it. And I was like, we're both hypnotized right now.
If you send someone, and I can tell you because this has happened, I can tell you this actually happens. If you send somebody Five Nights at Freddy's videos out of context, you will disturb them because they will add their own context and be like, "What does this mean? What is he trying to say?" It's true. It'll happen. Try it.
I'm going to try that. But again, I think there's some of these video games do remain timeless, and they'll get away with, that's not hot right now. And speaking of that too, and we got the Super Mario Brothers movie, that's the CGI that's finally coming out. I think that's going to do great business too. They got the right casting. Have you've seen the trailer on that?
Yeah, I saw the trailer. I'm kind of keeping my expectations low. Everyone's bitching about Chris Pratt. I don't care about. I mean, he surprised me with Lego Movie. I've always loved Chris Pratt.
Yeah,
I loved him. Parks and Rec is my favorite show of all time. Guardians was huge for the MCU and huge for him as well too. So I don't mind him as Mario. I will be honest. Surprisingly, the thing that I thought would be the best, and I'm not 100% sold on yet, is Jack Black as Bowser. Because the voice isn't. It almost seems like it's just Jack Black doing Jack Black a little bit, but I'm gonna hold it my condemnation or anything like that for until I actually see it. But I'm interested to see what they do with it because they've shown the teaser, but they haven't really revealed much of the story at all.
No, they haven't. And it's gonna be tough for someone like me because Captain Lou Albano is my Super Mario brother. He's my Super Mario, right? Or is John Leguizamo and Bob Hoskins your Super Marios?
Well, Mike says that's his Mario Brothers. Have you watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, the 90s one, the director's cut that's floating around?
Yeah.
No,
I haven't watched it. I want to see it. It's like 2.5 hours long.
Really?
Yeah. The stories, the behind the scenes in that movie is crazy. Apparently John Leguizamo was drunk all the time. Bob Hoskins Leguizamo was drunk and wrecked the car and broke his arm. So in half the movie, he's got a sling on that's covered with under his overalls and stuff.
Benny Blanco from the Bronx. What are you doing?
Yeah,
he had a great 2023, but
yeah, it's wild how back then you think they had no idea how to make a video game movie at all.
No.
Like they had this, nothing in that movie makes any sense.
Look at Street Fighter.
The guy who directed that never made another movie. He was like a successful commercial director. I forgot his name.
And he made one.
He made that, and he was out. I'm never doing that again. Forget it.
Oh, you talk about that and Street Fighter. You talk about why didn't Street Fighter work with Jean-Claude Van Damme? Right, that shouldn't have worked.
That movie is. And I've watched it probably like 8 or 9 times. It's awful. It's stupid and cartoony and fun, and it's something I'll put on whenever I'm just when I want to punish myself. But it's one of those movies that on paper you think would be a great idea,
right?
But they really I think they spent too much time trying to figure out how to make it make sense that it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's also one of those movies where they're like they booked it, and it's like they book a date, and that's it. Now we have a release date. Now let's write it, and let's get a director, and that's it. And then you have to book someone to just do it in a hurry.
Because there's a pretty decent cast in that movie.
Yeah.
Because you get Jean-Claude, you get Raul Julia, who's just loving.
Raul Julia, that's right.
That's right before he passes away. Like, he's sick during that movie and still just turns in a great performance. And then you get Ming-Na Wen, so Mulan's in the movie. There's a lot of great people, and they just could not figure out how to make it interesting. And it's such a simple concept, and I think that's probably what made it hard, is that the concept itself is so simple that trying to build so much story, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
I think there's an easier answer, actually, and it's 2-word answer. First line, it's white lines. And that's that what was going on that movie set. And it became the Street Fighter movie. This is like the Stephen E. DeSouza. Didn't he write like he wrote a lot of early 80s action movies. He was from the Shane Black era. And then at that point, Jean-Claude Van Damme was like at his worst. You know what I mean? He had like a $900,000 a week white lines habit.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the whole thing is, and Last of Us shows it, like respecting the IP. We've ranted about this before, respecting the IP, realizing the power that the nostalgia of these gameplay has for its fans. You should have never treated Street Fighter like it is just like, it's just a dumb kid's video game. Let's just convert it and just throw it out there. No, like we were talking, I was going to say with Nico Parker, she's so striking. She looks like a video game character. So it's all about booking the right talent, and then the talent respecting that IP is like, okay, I got to really take the time to capture Joel's moody essence of just like, if you tell me to go for the light, I'm going to break your freaking jaw, right? And just like, you need to have those characters that are going to capture that, and just go and taking some chances, like Settling Dust said, let the dude who did the Raid films do a Street Fighter Tekken film. Like, yeah, really take a swing and just like really go for it. I think that would have been baller to see that.
Yeah.
You think the Mortal Kombat movie would have been as successful without that soundtrack?
The first one, yeah.
Yeah. That soundtrack.
I say you get Street Fighter to some. I mean, yeah, he could be a good choice, but you want to go lower budget with that. Let somebody get creative. It's a tournament movie. I mean, that's all it has to be. You know what I mean? You don't have to do so much backstory. You don't have to have it make sense as to why one guy's this, one guy's that. Street Fighter is blood sport, but amped up.
Yeah.
So give somebody the ability just to do that and keep it grounded, do it real, do it like, Dark Knight style, where everything makes sense and seems plausible.
Well, that's what they did with Mortal Kombat too. They did that kind of indie reboot. I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, and it's the movie or short?
It started off as a short, and then they made it into like an actual film by placing all the shorts together and stuff like that, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, and it was like it was really good. I didn't like that the guy just had a gold body for no reason. Like I thought that was unnecessary, but whatever. But it was pretty good. But again, that one suffered from they didn't do a tournament. The movie's about a tournament. So that's where we should be. That's what we need to do. There's stories in that,
Well, look at Warrior. Warrior did it perfectly.
Yeah.
Warrior, basically, you had the whole tournament as the main centerpiece, and you can still tell a story that's interesting around people just fighting in a cage.
The top 3 video game movies of all time are not video games. And Mario, you already mentioned one. You had Bloodsport. Then you have Game of Death, and you have not Enter the Dragon. It was the other dragon movie when he went to the island, right? Was that Enter the Dragon?
That was Enter the Dragon.
That was Enter the Dragon.
Yeah.
Now, Revenge of the Dragon was when he fought Chuck Norris, right? Where that was the other title.
That was Return of the Dragon.
Return of the Dragon.
Or Way of the Dragon.
Yeah.
They have a lot of titles.
Yeah, but those were the best video games of all time because they captured that. Because I remember getting the very first Nintendo when I started playing Kung Fu. Remember the Kung Fu one? You go in each floors. I'm like, this is just Game of Death. And you just have the big boss. I mean, that's in the zeitgeist, right? When you just talk about this is the big boss, you got to, beat the boss to get to the next level. That was Game of Death. They're very simple concept. And Mario, I think you're right on the money. Go low budget and force them to be creative on it. Don't give them a high budget to make it look like a video game. Just book the right actors and don't give them a lot of money and see what they come up with.
Right. Those are all based on like cheap 80s movies. All the characters, like you've got Mortal Kombat, you've got Jean-Claude Van Damme as Johnny Cage, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, you've got various like early Hong Kong action stars is like Liu Kang, right? Mortal Kombat, Raiden is from Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes.
Why doesn't that get called out more?
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't people talk about that more?
Okay.
Don't you think that's a big issue?
That is a huge issue.
How does John Carpenter feel about that? Has anybody ever asked him?
No, I don't. I mean, it would be a very interesting conversation. Or knowing him, he'd be like, I don't care as long as they pay me.
I mean, one of the characters from his films went on to be a very popular video game character. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, they did steal that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was even we played it on here before, right? The pro wrestling video game that they were just like, well, this was before licensing was big, so it's just like we got Hogan. It's like, no, we're gonna get these other characters. We got King Slender fighting Hayabusa, the Amazon, Starman.
Yeah.
And they all could be traced back to a real character, whether it's in pro wrestling or if it's in movies. That's where they base it on. But it in a way, it worked. That stuff stuck with us. It's like in our brain.
Look, I need to contact Hollywood bigwigs right now, so tag them in this segment.
Just call them out.
I have a pitch for you right here. You want a video game martial arts movie? I'll do it. Book me for this. Karate Champ, the movie.
Oh, I loved Karate
Champ.
Double point.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy. Tournament movie.
Yeah. That was the other one that you were like, wait, is this like Karate Kid? But that's, yeah. And then you have the feats of strength in between, right? When you had to break the boards and stuff.
It writes itself.
Oh, man.
We don't even need a script. We'll just start filming.
Strategic booking of actors and low budget is a demand to force you to be creative. Unless it's something like The Last of Us. Obviously, they had to break the budget because now it's 2023. We're talking about like the nostalgia part, but now we're at the stage where it's arguable that there's more people that consumed this video game than consumed the TV series. Right. So now
probably right at this point,
you're trying to get more people over. You would have never thought like there's actors now that would be jonesing to get a role in a video game before they would in a movie because they're going to make more money.
It's big money.
It's like really big money.
Well, it's a different kind of challenge too. I mean, we saw it, when they did, I think it's Far Cry 6, is Giancarlo Esposito.
Oh yeah.
He's the main character. And it's like, you can see this top tier talent because granted, they're going to get a good paycheck. It's not the same as having to be on a set, a film set, and then just wait around for half your day and then get to do, 4 or 5 scenes. And you get to really develop a character a little bit more, and you get to spend more time with it as well, too.
Yeah, and I think you have a lot more room to play with the characters, right? And just like really stretch it out. You're not going to be beholden to a certain, because in a way you're establishing that world. What you do is going to be what it is. There's no like, well, you got to really in video games, it's not the other way around. There's been successful stuff that started as movies that turned to video games, but a lot of that is like, am I missing any? Like when you think about like the most successful movies that converted to a video game that aren't named E.T. that got buried in a trench, are we thinking like GoldenEye? Are we thinking like the Spider-Man on PS5? Like, are there any original movies that were converted to a video game that weren't already an established IP that were big?
I mean, GoldenEye is kind of the gold standard.
It is.
For especially, it was an incredible game before games were really that incredible. Yeah. And that was the kind of one that kind of changed people's minds, especially with it being like granted it's based off of an existing property, but that type of game that it was really, again, changed the way games were made, basically. Yeah.
The GoldenEye, people still talk about that. I think you can have a retro, anything along those lines, and that one always comes up. And I think Spider-Man did accomplish that because these video games, they're just so cinematic. Like it's a guarantee. Like where you were talking about earlier was Metal Gear Solid, right? Has that property been converted to anything yet? I feel like that writes itself too.
I mean, they've done some like animated movies and whatnot, but they haven't done anything like live action.
Yeah. Tron, Mike, that's a good point. Tron kind of brought up. I remember
Tron was dope. I like that old Star Wars stand-up game with the
it's like Vectron.
we've got the steering wheel.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was awesome.
And they used the actual sounds, and I think that helped too. And that was a good big box video games.
Look, RoboCop was a dope game.
Oh yeah, bro.
Side-scrolling RoboCop. I love that. RoboCop throwing punches. He never punches in the movie, but I guess he punches one or two guys.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
he did a lot of punching. You get to fight. He never jumped though, but I mean, either way, it's still a good movie. It's a good game.
Angry Video Game Nerd basically got launched on a movie video game as Karate Kid, right? It was being labeled as the hardest video game of all time, right? And that's what launched his Angry Video Nerd channel, was that Angry game. Terminator did have a good arcade one.
Yeah, those were always cool. Where you'd go and they'd have an actual Uzi for you to use as a joystick.
The two games for me that, because I didn't play a lot of games because I had no money and barely had anything, but because I was already a fan of the property of the TV show and the movies, the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game on the Nintendo Entertainment System was fantastic.
Yep.
And then you had a baller arcade, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I think it was I forgot what the name of it was now, but it was the 4-player arcade game where you got to each pick your own turtle and whatnot, and the side scrolling. And I spent what little money I had. If we were in an arcade, it was just always dropping quarters into that game.
Oh man, tons. Yeah, that was actually a really good one too.
Those big group games were a jam back in the day because they had that. They got Ninja Turtles. They had like X-Men, right? They had like a lot of groups.
Yeah, those were good.
And the Simpsons.
Simpsons
was a really good one too.
The Simpsons game, just driving through the town. Yeah, that was really good. Oh yeah, Mike just says Simpsons was a great group game. I did mark out, and I don't know if it's just because of nostalgia, but I think back and I remember really enjoying playing Friday the 13th and Jaws, both video games, and I'd be curious if they hold up. And you can still find a lot of their 8-bit video. Their opening songs is really good. But I do remember I felt like I was eating a forbidden fruit when you were playing as Jason, and then you had Pamela Voorhees' head kind of floating around. And I was like, can you really make a video game about somebody trying to kill these campers? And now fast forward, I was like, yeah, you better make something that's really lives up to the hype. What about, did you guys ever play Splinter Cell? That launched, I think, like the first Xbox?
I didn't play it. I knew of it. Back then, because when those games came out, I was kind of like in my early 20s, and so I really didn't have time for anything other than like working and trying to find a date.
Yeah.
So that's when I started. I remember I started playing Metal Gear 2 around. That's really the only game that I ever like played consistently. And so, like Splinter Cell, Rainbow Six, things like that were kind of all the rage at that time, and I really just never did it. And then, 10 years later, I started playing like Call of Duty and things like that. I'm like, I probably would have been pretty good at this if I had done it.
It would have been fun. What I really remember at the time, and again, this was early 2000s, that I liked about Splinter Cell, and now it's pretty normal, is you had to take the time to clean up your mess, or else you, like usually in a video game, right? We got used to, you can just leave a pile of bodies or whatever, and you walk away and then they would just render away. Where in Splinter Cell, if you snuck up behind somebody and snapped their neck, you better hide the body, because if somebody comes across that, they're going to sound the alarm. And I always like, wow, this is really good. Now it's really starting to add a consciousness to the decisions you're making on a video game. Like, oh, I know I just murdered this person, but I better hide the body or I'll get in trouble. Even though you're trying to basically snipe a third world dictator from a window. Oh man, but again, now video games, I think we're going to come to that stage, and this is going to be interesting, as we're all kind of in the film where video games and movies, the tie-in is going to be almost indistinguishable. Like we have now, it's probably safe to say that this next generation, if you would have just said, we're going to release all the cutscenes in one gob in a movie and we're going to release it in theaters, they probably, okay, that I'll go watch. And like, we're not going to do anything different. We're going to do that. But the tie-in has to be so important of just like this series. Because how many people now are going to go back who've never played Last of Us, and now they're going to go play Last of Us to watch it? And I'm going to ask either one of you guys. I'm the guy that will watch the movie first instead of reading the book, because I know there's a high chance that the book is going to be better. And if I read the book first and then go back and watch the movie, I'm going to say the movie missed so much. But if you watch the movie first, get it out of your system, then you go read the book, you get all this other stuff like, oh, wow, it's like now I get a prequel, I get all this added context. What do you guys do? Do you with a video game, the same thing could happen. Like, are you going to go back, or are you going to get more, you're going to get less? Which one, what comes first, the chicken or the egg in that scenario?
I mean, I don't think in my reality, or probably, I bet in a lot of people's reality, not going to even bother to play the game. They're going to go straight to YouTube to watch the cutscenes. So I agree. Just release the cutscenes as a movie, and folks probably go see it. I would. I started it last night. I was like, this is highly entertaining. Do a little editing, and just figure a way to massage some of those parts where they got to cut out the gameplay. And just play it. Go watch it. It's pretty good. It's an immersive experience. It works.
Like all the video games are like that. It sets a tone. What do you think, Geek Commander? You go back and watch the game. Like, do you read the book first? Do you watch the movie? What should come first?
Personally, it really just kind of depends on what it is. Like when Game of Thrones came out, I was like, much like Harry Potter, I was like, I should probably go ahead and read the books. And then I looked at the books and how dense and huge they were, and I was like, fuck that. I'll just watch the show. I was like, because it's going to be different anyways. I'll just take it for what it is. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever go back and go through and read the Game of Thrones books, but I enjoyed the show for what it was. So like with this kind of stuff, especially with Last of Us, because I already played the game and now I'm watching the show. What's nice is, the difference between the first and second game, what Naughty Dog did with, the Unreal Engine has changed and stuff like that they run the game off of. And so now the quality difference, and just in terms of the graphics between the first and second game, were so significant that they went back. They had already done a version of The Last of Us for the PS4, but then they went through and literally redid the entire game for the PS5 and literally changed parts of the game. Nothing significant, but like you can actually see, freckles on Joel's skin. You can actually see Tess's face, and then they changed parts of certain buildings are in different places to allow for lighting to do better. And so they went back through and just completely rebuilt the entire game shot for shot. So now I'm like, I kind of need to get a PS5 so I can play that now.
And it has a lot to do with tone setting in those games. It is really hard to, and I don't know if it's the uncanny valley or whatever. Certain games, when certain games are so watchable when someone else is playing. Like Mario, you're saying, you probably wouldn't get the urge to let me get the remote. Let me try that. You'll probably be like, no, I'm cool. I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to keep watching you play.
Right, because you have to get, before you can play the game, you have to get a $500 gaming device.
Right.
So there's another part of that. But if you just want to watch the cutscenes, they're free on YouTube.
Yeah,
so
you can just do that. Mike mentions Twitch Theater, and I realized back in the 90s, I was the original. I didn't realize I might have accidentally invented Twitch, because I used to have my little brother, my girlfriend, and I used to live in a trailer outside of where I went to school, and I would play Resident Evil, and they would run in there, sit on the couch right behind me, and they'd watch me play the entire time. And then I'd turn around every once in a while. I was like, you guys want to try this? Like, no, we're good. We're just watching you play.
Just watch.
And they just watch it for hours. And now, fast forward, I'm like, shit, that's Twitch. It was just Twitch IRL. Like, why didn't I copyright that in a trailer in Tampa, Florida? But I think it has something to do with horror video. Do you guys think that the horror and the aspect? I mean, I guess this would fall a little bit into horror, obviously, right? Do you think that translate the best to film or TV series?
I don't know. I mean, I think this is a special circumstance.
Yeah.
To where, granted, this is more of a horror-ish game, but even if it was something else besides The Infected, there's still a significant backbone of the story where I think it could work amongst other genres as well too. So I think this is kind of a special case. I mean, you know me, I'm not a huge horror fan, so I don't play, a lot of horror games or anything. I never played Resident Evil or Silent Hill or anything like that, just because those aren't the kind of games. And that was honestly one of the biggest challenges playing this game, is because I already have high anxiety to begin with.
Yeah.
In this game, if you have it, it just amps that shit up.
Oh, yeah.
So heavy. And so like playing with my wife, since it's a one-player game, we would just take turns. And there would be sometimes we'd play for like an hour, and I'd be like, all right, you have to take over. I can't do this right now because I'm sweating in the winter playing a damn video game. And so, but I think this is kind of one of those special games to where there's so many things that work about it that it's hard for it not to work,
Yeah. We talked about this when you were on last time. This show already felt like a hit, and all we had to go on was one trailer. Mm-hmm. And it was like, for some reason, I already felt like it was already in the zeitgeist. You felt all this emotional momentum leading up to this, that to the point where I was like, I'm no surprise at how it's the biggest HBO debut of all time, because you already felt that momentum coming.
Well, they already had the pedigree of the game, and the fact that but the main part of the creative team was working on the show. That's already a leg up above everything else that's come before it, because it's usually, someone might have like a executive producer credit, and they're really just basically getting checks for having a name. And so you don't have as many people as creatively invested in the success of it. And whereas this one, you already had a top-notch property to begin with, and then you have the creative team, and you start bringing in all these things. You cast it well, you bring in a fantastic showrunner, and all those kind of pieces just fit. And I mean, there's always the chance that it could have gone wrong, but I mean, the cards were stacked that it was going to be a success to begin with.
All the stars lined up.
And luckily, it's not, like people tend to talk a lot about like Marvel fanboys, which present company included.
Yeah.
I love everything Marvel. There's been bad Marvel movies. I'll be the first to admit it, but I still like them, and they're usually most of them are better than most of the other movies out there.
Right.
So I think what really helps is the fact that like you're not just seeing Last of Us fans saying how good of a show it is. Everyone is saying how good of a show it is.
Yeah, exactly. You can when you're pitching this, you're better off, if you want somebody to watch it, to not tell them it's based on a video game.
Yeah.
Just because they'll automatically shut down and not do it. Ironically, leading up to this, I haven't felt this leading up to a show since the show that this is compared to, right? The Walking Dead. Like, it felt like that had so much emotional momentum that you knew was going to be a hit right out of the gate. And this creates a different vibe, but it's really not that. And, it's pretty dissimilar in a sense where it feels different enough that you're not going to say, oh, this is just like Walking Dead, and you're going to change it. No, I think it's different enough. It creates its own thing, man. So yeah, if you're pitching it, don't tell people it's based on a video game, and it'll just shut them down. If you do that, then tell them afterwards, like a Pepsi challenge, like, surprise, this is what it is.
Well, I think the main difference too is, Walking Dead, I still haven't watched like the last couple of seasons, which I'm planning on going back and doing. But the whole premise of Walking Dead is basically just, the Walking Dead are the ones who survived.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are just kind of walking towards death. And so the whole concept of that series is based around this gigantic world and trying to connect the people that are in it. Whereas The Last of Us is a very, very small story.
It is small.
It's a father and dealing with the trauma of losing his daughter and gaining a new one, and trying to keep her safe and navigating this country on their own with some help here and there.
Right.
But it's a very two-person story. It's very small. It's very just close, and it's not broad like Walking Dead tends to be.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. That was a much bigger story. I stopped watching. I did watch the final episode because I wanted to see where it go, but I didn't watch the last season of The Walking Dead. But if you would have jumped into that, and for anyone that skipped it once Negan crowned, what's his name, and everyone's done, you wouldn't even recognize the show.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I didn't know these characters were still in there. So, Mario, you think there's any room for a Walking Dead or even Last of Us series to go to the big screen, or do you just say screw it and you keep this universe in streaming?
I mean, is that a thing anymore? Would a TV show become a movie anymore? I don't think that's ever really been a success, and I don't know. I don't know why they would bother.
Well, they're going to try it with Walking Dead because they're doing, I think, 2 Rick movies.
But are they doing it to go to the theater or to be on a stream?
They're saying that it's going to be an in-theaters film. If that's still the plan. That's what they've talked about even before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was just really, like you said, you're right. In the last, probably even just in the last 2 years, you would think now the theaters are like, no, screw that. We're going to keep this and play it on our streaming platform. Where before, I do feel like, can you successfully make this go to big screen?
It's a tall order. How do you convince someone to pay money to go see something they've watched on TV? Technically, I mean, not for free. They obviously have to have the cable or the service. But it's a tall order to say, do you want to leave your house, spend $50 probably at least to take you to the movies and watch Walking Dead?
Well, I think you really kind of have to give them a reason to do it. Like they did it with Breaking Bad because they had the movie. I can't even think of it. El Camino.
El Camino.
Yeah. But that was a Netflix movie, wasn't it? That was
technically it was
Netflix.
it was
Yeah,
a Netflix.
it's a Netflix movie.
And then they did The Sopranos reboot.
Oh yeah, the many,
not
the
the
many
reboot, but
saints
the
of
prequel.
Newark.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it can be done, but I think you have to be smart and you have to be able to find a way of. You can't just do it just to have the Walking Dead movie or any kind of movie like that. You really have to have a story that fits on the kind of the big screen like that.
Yeah.
It could definitely be done, but I question whether or not it could be successful.
Or do you do the opposite? Do you just take, like, hey, come make it a watch party and come, like Game of Thrones did, you can watch 2 episodes the night after they dropped on HBO, and you can go watch it on IMAX for like 3 days. Do you just do the opposite and you just say, we're just going to show you what you could watch at home for free, but if you want to watch it on IMAX with some other fans where you can cheer and just geek out, totally fine.
It's strange though when that Many Saints of Newark came out, because I think that was during the
That was a pandemic.
that was during the
affected,
pandemic.
yeah.
Oh no, we just got demonetized. Thanks a lot, guys. Can't say that word, but anyway, but like that was during that time, so it just kind of dropped on HBO Max or whatever. But it didn't really get over. Folks didn't get into it.
No.
But it did spike the views on the original show by a lot. Like that was bigger than the movie. The original show blew up on HBO Max after that.
And that's the slam dunk, right? Like how I was thinking about that, and we were talking about this when it comes to WWE, and if they sell to Saudi Arabia, what happens to this large body of footage that they have? Would the Many Saints of Newark been better if you're in the same, and as the movie's playing along, watch the pop-up video version like VH1 and like to see what this Easter egg meant, click here to go watch this episode, to go back and watch, because YouTube does that for us now, right? Like, oh, we need to go back and watch, Ryan Area and Screen Crusher, heavy spoilers, to catch all the Easter eggs. Would they cut into YouTube clicks if they say, hey, just go here, click here right now, we'll pause the movie for you, now you can go back and watch what the hell we're talking about?
What's sad is that'd probably do very well, but that would just fucking kill me inside. I can't. I don't even like it when people are talking around me.
Yeah,
And
no,
so,
it would have to be a second viewing. If you wanted
like
to
that's
go
something
back
that you
and
do
watch
like
it.
on your own. You have the option of doing that.
Yeah, make it instead of like the SAP where the second audio plays, like watch the pop-ups for the Easter eggs, because I very rarely do it, and Prime is the only one that kind of does it, where you have the X-ray, where you can do that, and like you said, that could be very distracting. If it's the first time you've ever seen something, it would have to be the second. You would be a sociopath if you did it on the first try, on the first pass.
And even with the X-ray, the only time I ever use that is if there's just I'm pretty good at knowing who people are or where they're from, and then every once in a while someone will show up on screen. I'm like, and it just kills me, and my wife makes fun of me because I will literally pause shows. I'm like, I know they're from something, and I'll have to find out what they're from because I can't. My ADHD will not let me focus on the rest of the show until I found out who that is and what they were on before. And so the Amazon Prime has been nice because I don't have to pause the show. I can just kind of click it up and I can see, oh, that's who it is, and go from there.
Keep going. We did a spot on that. My mom used to, pre-IMDb. Please, Jeffrey, tell me who that actor is. I have to know. It's like, how does a world with no IMDb, how did they act? So you guys want to take a quick break before we get into next spots?
Surely.
Let's take a break. All right, we are BRB.
I bet you think my favorite bubbly is champagne. Well, surprise. What I really love is Sun Country Wine Cooler. It's a truly marvelous blend of real fruit juice and premium wine. As a matter of fact, it's the best tasting cooler I've ever had. So when they asked me to talk about Sun Country, naturally I accepted. Sun Country. say, gimme the real juice cooler. They told me I'd be working in fur, but this is ridiculous.
Wang announces the most important step in managing information since the computer, WangNet. WangNet is the electronic connection that gives anyone in your office any kind of information they need instantly by linking together every conceivable kind of office equipment, no matter who makes it. WangNet links you to floors below or satellites above, using just half its capacity, leaving room, of course, for Wang's next breakthrough in office automation.
I am here to make a pitch for Sun Country Peach. Why me? Because I'm crazy about the taste of peach. And Sun Country Wine Cooler is the most refreshing blend of premium wine and real peach juice I ever pitched. It has such a great taste. It's how you say it? Peachy, peachy. Sun Country. Say, give me the real juice cooler. You know, I don't mind doing cuchi in a bear suit, but it's so itchy. Caramba, me está matando tantas hormigas dentro de los pantalones.
Let's buy our small computer from the giant computer company. You can't beat Goliath.
No. Right, David?
Sir, let's go with Wang. Nobody makes a better small computer or word processor. They're giant killers.
It happened before. It can happen again, because nobody's hungrier than Wang.
He's right.
I used to be frightened by all the wine coolers I saw. I was scared I wouldn't pick the right one. Luckily, I did. It was the most refreshing one of them all. Sun Country Wine Cooler. You see, Sun Country is a blend of premium white wine and real fruit juice. That's what gives it its great taste. Sun Country, say, give me the real juice cooler. If you don't say Sun Country, you'd better sleep with your lights on.
All over the world, Wang is a leader in office technology. Word processing, data processing, and now with our new electronic mail system, you can send all kinds of information from one part of the world to another. So New York can be around the corner from Paris, London from Tokyo, and San Francisco next to Rome. Wang, making the world more productive by bringing it closer together.
This is the tale of the Sun Country Kid. Rode into town on a horse he called Sid. Bought Sun Country wine coolers for one and all. Said, drinks are on me. Go on, have a ball. Sun Country's made from juice that's all real and premium wine for refreshing appeal. One sip and you'll know my story is true. Because when has this bear ever lied to you? Sun Country, say give me the real juice cooler. So ask for Sun Country. It's fun, never stuffy. And you can take that from a bear named Duffy.
10 hours of that, you think it would be a hit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we watch 10 hours of Fireplace. I watched 10 hours of Halloween Ambiance.
Yeah.
I think the 10-hour Dancing Dos Incredible Skeletons.
I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to post
will
it
be
for
a
soothing.
massive hit, yeah.
My favorite one was the when they did Nick Offerman sitting in front of the fire drinking his Lagavulin.
Oh,
and he just sits there for like a couple of hours and they loop it. I was like, that's all I need. Speaking of which, I can't wait for him to pop up in Last of Us. I'm so excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
I feel bad though because, you know, in the game, Bill is portrayed by W. Earl Brown. who is fantastic. He's a fantastic actor.
Another HBO.
Yeah,
Another
he's great in Deadwood. And so when they announced that he wasn't going to be playing, I was like, oh, it's kind of sad, but okay. But then when they announced Offerman, I was like, oh, I'm so in. I'm so in.
They gotta cast names that people know and recognize to pull people in. It's just part of the game, part of the job.
Well, we're getting Melanie Linsky too, who's playing a brand new character that's not in the game. So I'm excited to see that, because if you haven't watched Yellow Jackets yet, she is fan-fucking-tastic.
I haven't watched that entire show. I do want to see it, but I mean, I do. She's great. She was in that movie. I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. Mm-hmm. Did you watch that one?
Oh, I didn't watch that.
Oh God, it's amazing. Like it's so great. Just like based on such a simple premise. The way it just kicks off the story, and it just keeps building and building. Basically, what is the premise of the movie? She gets her laptop stolen. And she tries to track it with the, find my laptop joint. And that's just, it just kicks off, and it just goes like you wouldn't, it goes in directions that are believable and just insane at the same time.
You know what? It reminded me of
WildCats in the House.
If either one of y'all saw it, there was a great movie. I want to say it was like almost 10 years ago, but it was Kim Basinger. And she basically is playing like this woman who's at the mall and whatnot, and gets followed by these teenagers who basically come after her, and she has to like basically John Wick them. But it was fantastic, but it was very similar. It was a very simple little premise.
While she was out,
yes. And it just goes. It just goes full on, and you're watching Kim Basinger be like this action star. But it starts off very similarly with, she's just shopping at a mall, and a kid sees her leaving, and they all kind of start following her, and it just leads into this giant thing.
Oh man, you had me at Kim Basinger as John Wick. I got to jump back to W. Earl Brown, because I don't know about you guys. Of course, you know him in Deadwood, but people, if they ever say, "Who is W. Earl Brown?" don't you go, "Frank's and Beans, Frank's and Beans."
That's that guy?
Yeah, he's Frank's and Beans.
Yeah, he was the same one who was in Deadwood. And he's also in, and I'll catch so much shit, but I don't care. It's not even a guilty pleasure, because I'm not guilty about it at all. One of my favorite movies that I will watch every single day if it's on, I don't care, is the Kevin Costner movie Draft Day.
Oh, I've not seen Draft Day.
I love Draft Day. I don't care. It's not even like it's a good movie, but it's not like a film or anything like that. But I will literally watch that movie all day. And W. Earl Brown is in that as well, too.
I just heard a podcast about that one. I've never seen it, and I do want to check it out.
I was so surprised. I mean, I love football, and it's cool and all. But I remember watching it, I was like, I just needed something to watch. And it was right before our fantasy football draft. I was like, I'm going to watch Draft Day because it seems like it's appropriate. And got so hooked into that movie. Fucking Chadwick Boseman plays a great role in there.
Yeah,
Tom Welling's in it. But I've watched Draft Day probably 30 times, and I might even go watch it tonight. Who fucking knows?
Ivan Reitman, man.
But
Ivan Reitman's last movie.
It's so good, and Jennifer Garner's in it, and I love her. And so
look at that box art too. It's like Moneyball.
Yeah, it's a great movie to watch, and I literally will just watch it anytime. I have no need for a reason or anything like that.
That's Mario's cable theory. That's like, just play me what you curate what I want to watch, and I'll watch it again and again.
Yeah,
and Draft Day falls into that.
I would like to see Draft Day. I hope Sling plays it soon.
I got to jump into before we go. So let's do a social media update. We haven't done a social media update in a while, and this one is going to be specific to Instagram. I've still been posting a lot of. I try to. Again, these are all billboards for what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring everybody here, but you got to be in the grams. Unfortunately, you got to be in the TikToks to get this out there. But I don't know about you guys, but have you been using Instagram notes? I think maybe me and like 5 other people have been marking out for Instagram notes.
You've been telling me about it. I don't really know.
All I'm really doing with it is just making an excuse to come up with like really elevator pitch of ideas. So it's a challenge, like what's in the zeitgeist right now that we have to do this. So it's like, Cowboys versus aliens. We know what that's going to be, right? That's Tom Brady versus the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, it's my new Twitter. Yeah, we're marking out for him. For some reason, like you go on your personal account, like no one's posting. But under the Dose Incredibles account, Instagram notes is popping. Like it is the place to be. So in honor of this episode, I actually did my next movie pitch is going to be a movie mashup called The Last of Us on the Left. And I was like, oh man, that was like that hit. And then our friend on there so it's Muad'Dib Munchkin. So I don't know how to pronounce your Instagram handle on there. So it's PAIMONNATREIDES. So it was good. So he actually took it and ran with it and made it even better. And then I was totally marking out over notes. I was like, this is turning into chain writing. So he's like, I think your mashup idea can bear some fruit. 2 parents have their kid and their friends go off on a scavenge, but the kid ends up getting left behind to die and becomes infected. With their last breath to make it home and tell their parents what happened, and their parents plot revenge. There could be a hurricane and multiple clickers, even unleashing the infected kid on the friends too. It's like, that's perfect. He actually took the premise of Last House of the Left and mished it with The Last of Us. And I was like, this is the new Twitter.
The music would work well. You could do that. And the road leads to nowhere. Underneath the virus, the fungus.
It creates such a vibe. So you guys definitely, I was like, you know what? I need more people to see this. So I've been taking our Instagram notes and putting them on Twitter and then tagging it back to notes. It's like, come join us in notes. But I don't know. It's a different, there's people who like Twitter that'll never go to Instagram and vice versa. So I feel like Instagram notes could be the bridge. So if you're listening out there, Meta, you do a lot of things wrong. But maybe you can do this one right. Just saying.
Zuckerberg.
Yes.
Just tag him on this one.
Yeah. So pretty good. But let's jump over to, this is a vote for Pedro episode inadvertently. So let's jump over to The Mandalorian. So the trailer dropped during the final game for the Super Wildcard weekend. And the social media team was all over it. So it played on the TV, and within, like, if you just sat here and hit refresh, it was there as soon as it was done on there. So B-Rose, I know you didn't watch it yet. I don't know if you want to watch it. Are you holding off on spoilers, or do you want to watch it and then react, or you just haven't had a chance?
No, I just honestly just haven't had a chance. I'll watch it. I got no problem watching it.
So I don't know, Mario. Should we let it rip? It's a pretty quick one.
No, well, I mean, this will cut the stream off.
Instantly, right?
Yeah. I mean, after 15 seconds. But I can show it to you live with no sound.
Okay. And then we can get flashback, and the imagery here is incredible. Like, now you feel like what happened with Book of Boba Fett is everybody was upset that they just stayed on. B-Rose, did you watch Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were just upset that he just pretty much stayed on Tatooine. And then they went right into Obi-Wan. They're like, oh, no more sand. No more. Everyone turned into Anakin anymore. I don't like sand. It's coarse, and it gets everywhere.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play for you guys the trailer with full screen here. You guys can see it full screen. No sound with the captions.
With captions. Okay.
And you guys feel free to interject, react. You can watch this later on the way home, B-Rose, with the sound. But here, let's just watch it this way.
It is definitely one trailer that you rewatch over and over again.
Just ignore the meowing from Podcat.
That is not part of the trailer.
Don't ruin your trailer experience. Lucasfilm logo is over, in my opinion.
It's still in there. And we go right into Lightspeed, and we take off from that episode of Book of Boba Fett when he got the Naboo vehicle, and now they're flying there, and he's teaching Grogu how to fly. And if I remember correctly, to know your way, you can't just learn how to fight. You got to know how to navigate that galaxy.
Look, there's that one thing, Jabba the Hutt's lair, or whatever it is. Apollo Creed is looking sharp.
Is running his planet. You got a rainy planet, which people are theorizing that this could be Kamino, but for you Bad Batch fans, you know that Kamino's been destroyed.
You got the blacksmith destroyed Mandalore. There's that. What is it? That's that robot with the busted power converters.
Yep, exactly. R5D4. You know we are going to have to go back to Tatooine. We got a fireworks show.
March 1st, coming soon.
Yeah, so it is going to be competing with The Last of Us and the Bad Batch. And then you show him he's back on Mandalore. We're getting a Jedi flashback, so they are in the temple. So we suspect we're gonna find out how Grogu got out of the temple, which is who shot JR.
A lot going on in this trailer, and it looks sharp.
Yeah,
it looks way sharper than the last 2 seasons.
Oh yeah,
I think Babu Frick's
peeps are in there. And then we got definitely some kind of Bigfoot, and we see boom. Grogu definitely knows how to use force push, and that's a beautiful shot. You know, I know people are a little bit
Disney logo.
We
own your memories. What do you think, B Rose? Okay, you've only watched it now with no sound, but let's give some first thoughts. Or anybody, Jeff, if you want to have you.
No, go with B Rose because that's his first.
B Rose, what did you think of the trailer?
I've watched
visually?
it a dozen times.
That's always the one thing that Mandalorian especially had. It had it over Boba Fett, and it has it over every other show that's Star Wars related. Is just visually. I think that having Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau kind of spearheading the show has given it a very unique identity, and I keep saying the word, but it's got a pedigree behind it to where visually it is, from the first season, it's always been stunning. So yeah, I love the shots that they're doing, and I like that they're kind of opening the world a little bit more and bringing more people in, because in the beginning it was very kind of closed, and it was kind of, task of the week. It was very much like a video game. It was like a quest. This week's quest is this week's quest is this. And now it seems like they're finally getting to spread their wings a little bit. So that's nice to see.
It looks shinier, in my opinion.
It looks way shinier.
From a technical standpoint, filmmaking standpoint. This one's way shinier. It's got more lights that flash. You can tell things are bigger, because the original 2 seasons are like a Western on, dusty old West sets, like Brad Pitt. Cliff Booth is the stunt double on those.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So it's got that whole, this looks big.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
Well, it looks like it's finally, it looks like it's going from that kind of Western feel to Star Wars in the bigger sense of the word, So it looks like it's kind of finally entering in that world where it's like, because we see space in the first 2 seasons, but it's not as much. Towards the end of the second season, we see it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But in the end, it still felt very, I don't want to say small, but very just self-contained, and it wasn't really focused on anything of the larger kind of Star Wars stuff, really. And then now it looks like towards the end of that second season, and now with this, it looks like they're really kind of leaning into the larger world that it is.
My son watched this trailer when we were watching the game, and he did not watch the Book of Boba Fett. So he popped because he's like, wait a minute, Grogu is back with Mando? How did that happen? So for anybody who have not watched the 1 episode there in Book of Boba Fett, or is it 1 or 2 episodes that they hijacked and it became Mandalorian season 2.5?
Yeah.
You're in for a surprise, but a good surprise, because I think a lot of people were worried that if that was the end of the Mando quest of just to get Grogu back to being his Jedi, and now he's going to go on another thing, they're a package deal now. You got Pedro Pascal that's guiding Ellie and Grogu, and it's so important to his character of just having that protectiveness in a world like right now in 2023. Everybody's anxiety's high. People would love to have a Mandalorian or a Joel that's going to take care of them. I want them to come take care of me.
Everyone wants a sexy daddy.
Yeah, exactly. Just to come make sure where things are going to be okay. That was an important part of the story. They are a package deal now. And if this series doesn't end with Grogu wearing mini Mandalorian armor, they messed up. And but it's Dave Filoni, and Dave, we trust they will not mess up, and we will get Grogu someday in mini Mandalorian armor, and he's going to be the chosen one. That he is Force sensitive, then he's Jedi, but he's also a Mandalorian. I think nobody would have saw this coming, right? That this puppet was going to kind of take over save Star Wars.
I think they knew.
You think?
I think they 100%. They knew from the beginning that. I think they knew it was going to be huge. It was going to be a huge pop. They maybe didn't realize just how big.
Yeah.
They probably thought, oh, this is going to be our C-3PO or our R2-D2. This is going to be
Groot.
Our little baby Groot. And now he's bigger than all of them.
No, he saved Star Wars.
Like he's everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I think they knew. I think that's why they spent so much time making sure it would check all the boxes. It's cute. It has a nice personality. They spent so much time on the actual animatronic. And yeah, I think that's why they knew why they had that small tease. That's how the first episode ends. Is you just see that little hand pop. I think they knew immediately what they were doing.
That was going to be. I would never have guessed that I know we're exaggerating, not really though, that he would have saved the Star Wars from whatever anger that came from the sequels, because now people wanted to see what happened to Luke.
The guy who wrote Swingers.
Yeah.
The guy who
saved Star Wars.
That's
a Hollywood success story.
Not only did he save Star Wars, he created, in essence, the MCU.
That's
because
true,
you don't get the MCU if Iron Man doesn't work.
He's so money.
You're like a big bear, man.
And let's not forget, he gave Rudy the inspiration
Anybody
he needed to play.
Anybody who does that to Favreau is immediately fired. Yeah. I'm sure. They're gonna just get out. We'll mail you your desk stuff.
Speaking of which, and I hate to bring it back, but this is one of my other favorite don't care, I watch it all the time movies, is another football movie called The Replacements. And he is fucking fantastic in that movie.
Yeah, I do remember The Replacements.
He is built like a brick shithouse.
Yeah.
Playing the linebacker, and he's a fucking SWAT team member.
Pete Roast, you're going to get us demonetized.
He's so
It's a family
good.
show.
He's so good. He's so good in that movie as well, too, because he's such a great actor, but you also get to see this other side now where he's a fantastic writer and producer and director as well, too.
He went through a stage where he was pretty Jack Diesel all the time, right? Mm-hmm. I remember on the Breakup Island or whatever with Vince, he was like, his character was all about lifting weights and stuff. He's just happy John.
I also have a guilty pleasure football movie that's not even as good as The Replacements, but I have to watch it every time it's on.
Oh, let me see if I can guess it.
I think you probably know exactly what it is.
It's The Sport of Kings. It's better than Diamond Rings. WildCats?
No.
It's not WildCats.
It's not WildCats.
Okay.
It's way worse than WildCats. WildCats is good. It's like a classic. It's like appeals to everyone. Necessary Roughness.
Oh, I love Necessary Roughness. I love that movie
with
so
Scott
much.
Bakula and Sinbad.
Oh, and then Andrew Bryniarski's in that one.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, I love that movie so much.
I forgot about Necessary Roughness.
There's so many like awful, great sports movies, much like that. Because I feel the same way like about Major League, about all three major leagues.
Yeah,
like I love all three of them.
I think Major League was great. I mean, I tried to. Funny story. When I was wrestling, I told a story on here when I got my first haircut and I came in with an Incredible Hulk card when he was going through his 90s. I was like, can I have that? Because I did not know how to explain to give me the Charlie Sheen zipper haircut from the back. And I didn't know if that would translate on TV. It's like, forget it. Just give me the Hulk.
Welcome to football. That's right.
That's right.
Kathy Ireland.
Kathy Ireland, yeah. Kathy Ireland, Sinbad, Scott Bakula. What a cast. That's not even everybody. I think it had some cameos from some folks.
And who's the coach? I can't think of it off the top of my head right now.
The coach was the coach. I can't think of his name. Hector Elizondo.
Hector Elizondo, yeah.
From Pretty Woman. Mm-hmm. He was the coach.
Oh, wow.
Necessary Roughness, man. Like I don't know why that movie appeals to me.
And
so
it's
much.
a Texas movie.
Well, anything that's Texas, I pop for that immediately. There's this one movie that's on Peacock right now called Vengeance.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It's got BJ Novak.
Yeah, it's his
anyway. It's all about Texas, but they talk about Whataburger for like half an hour, so it just pop for every time the Whataburger comes up.
Which, going back to The Last of Us, that was one I've been telling everyone. Like we know that it's set in Austin from the gang, but in the game you see a couple of small little signs just showing Austin this way, all that kind of stuff, so you can kind of see that. But nothing else about it very much is Texas. Like the shots that they showed in the show, you get to see the food trucks, and so they're like. But the thing that did it for me was seeing the old school Capital Metro bus. I saw that, I was like, oh, this is Austin. It's 100%. That was one of my favorite things, seeing that in the show.
I gotta talk. This is the Vote for Pedro episode, so I gotta bring this up. And I don't know if I hijacked the podcast here, but how did Pedro get to where he is? Because he seems like he flew under the radar for a little bit. Yeah,
he did. I mean, Game of Thrones is really what broke him.
Oh. I mean, he was in Narcos as well.
Yeah,
that's the first thing I remember him from. But I mean, he had to have been around for a little bit, doing other stuff. I don't know what other stuff he did. He just all of a sudden he's huge, and I mean he's awesome.
Yeah, like Game of Thrones was what kind of introduced him to everybody, and then he did Narcos literally right after. Spoiler alert: he dies in Game of Thrones spectacularly. But then he pops up on Narcos after that, and then he just kind of continues that rise. I think I talked about it a while back when I was here, that he's in an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Is he really?
He's in the pilot, or not the pilot. He's in the first episode of season 4 when Buffy goes to college. He plays a kid at college with her who gets killed and turned into a vampire that she has to slay. And he's all clean cut and baby faced and whatnot, but it's great. And even though he has the awful vampire makeup, even then he's one of those people where you kind of like, all right, your eye focuses on him.
And I think also, like, for me, what I really dig about him is just like from a personal standpoint, he is like a Latino Hispanic actor who can just play Latino Hispanic in any part. You know what I mean? He can, like, it doesn't have to be called out. It's not part of his character. It's not part of his persona, how he acts. He can just be Joel. Yeah. You know what I mean? He can just be the Mandalorian. And it's just, no one questions it. No one has any thoughts of it. It just, boom. He just does it so smooth.
Yeah, he's playing a guy named Joel Miller, which is a very white name.
Yeah.
Man, he has a massive body of TV work before he got there.
Yeah, I knew he had to
here's this Buffy. He was in. Do you guys remember that show on I think it was USA, Good versus Evil, G versus E. He was in that. He was on Touched by an Angel, NYPD Blue, Sisters, Law and Order, Criminal Intent, Nurse Jackie, The Good Wife.
Everybody's been on Law and Order. I was on for like half a season.
Burn Notice, Law and Order, the Wonder Woman TV movie before even Wonder Woman 2, Charlie's Angels, CSI, Nikita, The Six Gun, and then I think stealing the show in the Game of Thrones is what I think really elevated.
Well, he paid his dues. He was a journeyman actor, and then it was kind of the perfect moment. They needed someone of that kind of like Latin look to kind of play that character, because in Game of Thrones, that's what they are. They're very much...
Yeah, because he was island-based.
Exactly, and so he kind of fit the thing, and so it just...
Oh, there she is. I was like, where is she? Sounds like she's behind me.
He just came in perfectly and just absolutely killed it with that role, and it's a role, like, from what I've been told, it's in the books, he's a well-known character, but it's not like he's, Ned Stark massive or anything like that, and he just had the charisma to just really set himself apart in the show.
Oh, that worked so well because it was set up like a perfect, like a wrestling match, and it was an angle, and he came in and he was like a hot shot, and you knew he was going to take him, and then all of a sudden he was picked to be a champion, and you're like, well, maybe this guy can pull it off. How's he gonna fight the Mountain? And then when he was, it literally did the wrestling journey of just like giving you so much hope, and he's like, oh my God, he did it. And then when he lost spectacularly, and that just stuck with you so much, because like now you just took him out in such a way that you'll never forget him, and that he got the rub. And then so it worked so well. So this 2023 is vote for Pedro. I'm curious of what
he had to be one of the better parts of Wonder Woman in 1984.
He was, yeah.
Mike's calling it out. Yeah, it's true. Like, that movie was the biggest bomb of the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
People lost jobs, but no, he came out clean on the other side. No hassles.
He was the character, and I didn't read him in the the one who he's based in the comic books was actually a much bigger character that they didn't really. That did not come across in Wonder Woman 84 at all, like how big he was. But you're right, he survived it. Man, that was just at a perfect time. That movie was probably a little bit grateful, because what would happen if we got Wonder Woman 84 in theaters? We know he would have been unscathed. But would that have sent DC, who's already in turmoil, but would the turmoil have kicked in earlier if that would have went to theaters? Because the word of mouth on that would have been brutal.
It would have been, but I also think that, so many movies are really made by the opening weekend, so I think it would have been much like, a lot of DC's movies. It would have made a ton of money to begin with, and then it probably would have gotten torn apart by critics and stuff like that. Personally, like, that movie had a lot of credit going in from me, because the original Wonder Woman movie was just so fantastic.
Yeah, it was good.
So I didn't hate it as much as most people, but I also didn't like it as much as I wanted to.
Yeah, I hated it. Like, I thought it was awful. Just a terrible. I thought it was a terrible movie. I don't know how that happened. Like, you have to be spectacular. You have to be super talented to make a movie that bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not bad. It's not bad in the way The Room is bad, where, it's like terrible script, bad cinematography, whatever. It looks awesome and sounds awesome and has the best actors in the world, and it's just bad. Just to wield that into something so terribly unentertaining takes talent.
It was a big drop, and it was a big drop that shouldn't have happened, because you had Kristen Wiig, which was great casting as Cheetah, and then you're going to have the ability to almost capture the nostalgia of the TV show and make it feel like you were watching the 70s show, and they were going to capture that time period when the 80s was big with Stranger Things. Everybody wanted to see what that would have looked like, and they did. She didn't make it. Everybody wanted to see what it was a Wonder Woman would have looked like in 1984. And I wish they would have made her look like, the Super Friends cartoon. I think that would have been better off. But for some reason, it was just such it was a stark drop off because the first one was so well. And they haven't announced that. The only one they announced was Henry Cavill's not Superman and The Rock's not part of whatever they're calling Phase 1 or whatever. They did not announce anything about her other than the Wonder Woman 3 was canceled, right?
Yeah, well, Patty Jenkins walked away, and they've both said that they're not going to do it without the other one. So
I think Ezra Miller got a raise, actually.
Oh, God.
And he was promoted. They don't want to let him go.
They don't.
He's like, that Flash must be amazing. The movie must be spectacular.
Oh, man.
James Gunn was fired for making bad taste jokes 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He lost his job. Ezra Miller kidnapped a family and put him in a cult.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if
he's basically Nexium Part 2.
Yeah. I'm not law enforcement or, whatever, but I mean, it seems like that's worse.
Well, to quote William Hurt in History of Violence of like with Wonder Woman, how do you F that up? I think the Ezra Miller thing is the completely opposite. How do you not have to just get him out of there, man? Like a CGI a mask over his face. Or CGI, I was funny. I was doing a little bit of research from our James Cameron stuff, and I watched the old James Cameron on Entourage, which was so good. And I want to see Vinny Chase's Aquaman. Anyway, he was talking to James Cameron. He's like, man, the CGI is so good. And he's like, we won't need actors. And he's like, yeah, in 5 years, we definitely won't need actors. And James Cameron was like, just kidding. But like, was he kidding? But can you basically CGI over Ezra's face and make people think, don't worry, that's not an actor. This is just the Flash.
We can get Control-Shift-Face YouTube page to replace Ezra Miller with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Just deep fake it.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work with the acting union with the Screen Actors Guild, but there's got to be something to it where it's like, look, we want to continue this, but we can't be associated with. Although was he found innocent or did he plea?
They're still working on it.
They're still.
Yeah, honestly, they could do it just like Mando. Just give him a full-faced mask, and then it doesn't really matter. He could be in the movie all he wants, but you just do someone else's voice, and that's what it is.
That would be the end of it.
I need to see this movie immediately. Like, can you imagine? The movie's so good that the studio is willing to cover up your crimes.
That's terrifying.
That's a movie. Somebody write that. Give that to the Coen brothers to do. Can we book it? Delete this podcast.
Yeah, just book it. There we go.
But like, seriously, I mean, the movie's got to be. If that movie comes out and it just dies, can you imagine?
Oh yeah.
I don't even know.
Honestly, I don't think we'll ever see it. I don't think we'll ever see it truly.
You don't think it's going to make it out, or we won't see what they originally had, right?
I don't think we will, because so far Gunn has been very open about what is going to be on the docket, and he's been more tight-lipped about the Flash.
Yeah, so you think they're recutting scenes and getting rid of a lot of... Well, the Henry Cavill stuff is already gone, they said, right?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they can the whole thing. I mean, they did it with Batgirl, and that movie had a lot of money behind it as well, too. Wow. And it also had Michael Keaton.
Yeah, and is Michael Keaton stuff going to be cut out of the Flash, too?
I think that they're cutting a lot of it out. They're keeping a little bit.
Wow.
I mean, they paid him. He's like pay or play. They probably just paid him a huge salary to film a bunch of stuff and then throw it away.
Yeah.
I mean, I think now to the point now, I don't think this is necessarily going to be detrimental to the box office. I think everybody who's on the ends is going to be like, I got to see what they did.
It could
got
be.
to figure out.
Well, I mean, so far, Warner Brothers has shown absolutely no problem with canceling stuff for a tax write-off. So I honestly...
Look, I'm just going to put this out there. I think that things are changing, man. I think IP stuff has cut out its groove and it's doing what it's doing, but smaller movies are getting over.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, horror is big. Things like Smile made a lot of money. So we expect 5 more Smiles. And then spin-offs of Smile. Smirk is coming. As well.
And Smolder. I was a 3 with Smolder. It's the third one.
Smile, smirk, and smolder. It's going to be the.
Well, they announced
Terrifier 2 was one of the biggest movies of the year.
Yeah.
People need to talk about Terrifier 2 more.
They announced today they're going to be doing a sequel to Megan now too.
Of course they're going to. Perfect booking on Megan. The movie that we were talking about seeing earlier tonight, Jeff, Skinamark.
Oh yeah, JJ was talking. He's the one that called this. He was the first time I've heard it. It's like experimental.
They made that for $15,000. It's playing at the mall across the street. So like, horror is like big. It's big. So I think that what I think if people are willing to take chances on other stuff nowadays, you know what I mean?
Well, think about this. We're in January, and we talked about Avatar had no competition per se. But I think as far as like pop culture goes, we're talking about the culture pops. People are talking about Megan just as much, if not more, than Avatar. I think that they're talking about Avatar in more like the box office terms, like Mike, we were talking about, like is it gonna make the 2 bills, how much it's gonna make it. But people are talking about Megan of just like how much they enjoyed it, even though it was a great movie. But you saw the trailer, you saw all the high spots.
Right.
You saw all the high spots. But
the thing is about making the advertising campaign was good.
Oh, it was great.
People knew that it was coming out and they went to see it. Usually around this time of the year, they don't promote anything. They just dump it. But like they had a campaign and they got people in the theater because they said, you know what, our movie's all right. So so what? They dropped all the spoilers on the trailer, but it worked.
It worked great.
It worked in this instance, you know. So we're going to see more Megans.
And again, I talked about this. For people walking by, they must have thought Megan was a comedy if they never heard of Megan. It was literally like Leslie Nielsen and Priscilla Presley cracking up and walking out of Platoon. Like they just couldn't stop. The people, even though it was most of the stuff we saw in the trailer, people were laughing and they were popping and they were just like, she got over so well with the live audience. I love the live audience experience when they react. B-Rose, I think we were in the same screening for one of them. Like when they pop in Marvel, it's great. When people scream in a horror movie, it's great because the reaction is working. Megan got so many reactions, and I still say if it wasn't for Wednesday on Netflix, I think more people would have been doing the Megan TikTok dance but sorry, it's just Wednesday just took over and rightfully so. But that's the only reason why we didn't get more Megan TikTok dance. But that's like you said, the campaign was all built around social media. You knew it was coming. The awareness was there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to do now. Like I was ready for Megan months ago. Like I knew it was coming.
The first trailer was good. But again, they showed all their cards in the first trailer.
They did.
That's fine.
And it did. And it worked.
It'll work.
And again, we had that with last year. You know, people were, like everyone's top 5 has like Barbarian and it has Smile. And then we're already like, so January, we already have Megan. And next month, everybody's already talking about Knock on the Cabin. And I don't know, B-Rose, where you fall into M. Night Shyamalan, if that falls into your horror that you're not about. But you know he's going to make it have a twist and it's going to be really good. And we got, you know, Ron from Harry Potter, and we got Batista in there, and a Knock on a Cabin, and it looks so small, but it feels so big.
Well, I mean, when you talk about M. Night, especially in terms of like horror, like everyone tends to think of like The Village or things like that, which really was kind of a letdown. But like, I don't know if there's ever been. I mean, I can vividly remember the moment, like. I think everyone crapped their pants a little bit when you got that 1-second shot of the alien in Signs.
Oh man, I saw that on Twitter recently. Someone
100%.
Yeah.
That's one of the best scares of all time.
And that got me so hard. I was like literally, my anxiety rose so heavy in that. So he can do it if he gets, you know, out of his own butt and just works on making the movie. And so
which I think he started to now. Like I think he got away from like. It was just Sixth Sense was so high, and I think now he's finding his groove after, you know, nobody cared about the bees. Now he's starting to find, like, The Visit with, you know, the found footage of the grandmother visit, I think worked so well. I liked Old. I was one of maybe the few people that I really liked that concept. I think he really is finding his groove.
I think he tends to do better when he's not trying too hard.
Yeah.
Because we saw that with Unbreakable.
Oh yeah, he wasn't trying.
And then we saw that again with, oh my God.
Signs?
No, with the
Village.
Oh, The Village.
No, with the sequel to
Split.
Split.
Yeah,
So we saw that with Split, but then we saw the adverse to that when he was like, "Oh, everyone loves me right now. Here's Glass." And Glass, it was such a disappointment.
Very disappointing.
And so I think that if he works on making the movie for himself, he usually tends to do a little bit better.
Yeah.
When he's making movies for the crowds, that's when he tends to lose his way.
He didn't stick the landing on Glass, and that was very disappointing.
I think they probably didn't have enough money to make that movie,
and they just ran out.
I mean, yeah, because M. Night is like self-funding his stuff now.
Yeah,
he started his own company. Everything is self-funded. Yeah, I just don't think he had enough money to make that, so he came up with a gimmick and how to do it, and the asylum with colors and all that stuff, and it was not how that. It was not. That was not what the sequel to that movie should have been.
No, and I was okay with it until it just
Unbreakable. I love. I think Unbreakable was great.
And then that's the biggest pop in Split is that last scene, and you realize that they're all connected, and you're just like, oh.
I think honestly, like M. Night. I'm not a mark for Sixth Sense to me. That was just, I didn't get into that one. I called the twist first scene. He's dead. Donnie from New Kids on the Block shot him. We saw it. I already called it. I already called it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like from there on, Unbreakable, Signs is great. I love Signs. I pop for Signs every time it's on cable with the commercials. I'll watch it, and even The Village. I think The Village is good. I think that movie suffered from.
What's the twist going to be?
Yeah,
exactly. Because it's a great movie.
Folks were waiting for the twist, and then he kind of. I don't know. I think the twist should have been that there is no twist, but I don't know. I'm not. But like, it needed more than the standard M. Night twist, right? It needed something else. It's a good movie. I think Lady in the Water is pretty good.
Oh yeah, Mike was saying the visuals, the one jacked arm.
Yeah, Lady in the Water was pretty. I think Lady in the Water is pretty good.
That was a straight up film, right?
There no twist. And it's he doesn't like, if you want to put yourself in your own movie, that's fine. You know, whatever. That's up to you. I would put myself in. If I directed it, I'm going to be in it for sure. But I'm going to play like the convenience store clerk, right? It's like, oh, show me your ID. It's like, oh, I don't have ID. Oh, man, well, I can't sell you this six-pack. What? Get out of here. And that'll be my part.
That's it. Wes Craven mopping the...
You don't... But when you cast yourself as like, I'm going to write a poem that saves the world. And it's not even relevant to the plot. It's about a mermaid, right? It's a mermaid thing that would go... There's all kinds of... And he's also in the movie. It's like, I'm going to save the world.
He had a little bit of the Quentin thing for a while. It's like, you felt like for a while that Quentin is a phenomenal writer, he is, but for a while there, everyone was like, no, he's just directing because he wanted to be an actor. Yeah. But I think in the end, they just love being around movies. In movies, writing, directing, acting in.
I think the best directors are ones who want to be actors. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that that's how it was originally. Directing was the offshoot of acting, because that's the director's main job, is to direct the actors. Yeah. To make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. The visuals were up to somebody else. But, you know, when the indie stuff happened in the 60s, 70s, and then the 90s, it became about, you know, interesting visuals, because you could do things now that you couldn't do before. Yeah. You know, camera technology evolving or whatever. But yeah, I think that's what makes a good director, is understanding how to direct the actors. And then if you don't need to do the visuals, but you hook up with a good cinematographer who can do the visuals for you, and he understands what you're doing.
Oh, Bobby Zadar is so happy with you right now. Yeah. Jeffrey, I'm going to get me a DP, and he's going to make me look like $1 million as a director. Yeah.
I think we should do that as a comic. We should do a Bobby Zadar comic, because like me and Bobby Zadar.
I would love to do, man. I wish he was still around for sure. But we were talking about like the low budget and kind of changing, and it's the year, not necessarily the IPs, but the low budget. We got to talk about Sick on Peacock, that was released. That to me came out of nowhere. I think I remember you telling me about it, because didn't it have a festival run?
Well, it played at Fantastic Fest, and I didn't get to see it last round when I had that badge. But I read about it. I thought it was interesting. It sounded cool. It's a good idea.
Yeah, and I was like, why is this already on Peacock? Because like, yeah, I'm going to watch it, because again,
Well, I mean, like Fantastic Fest was last November, so
yeah, it was a while ago, so I had no idea.
Last September.
But I think we all, especially all three of us on this show, appreciate how good of a writer Kevin Williamson is, and we're getting into like the Scream, and it's kind of like getting like I feel like he's having a renaissance, not because of necessarily a Scream. So I love this idea of just him coming out of nowhere in his podcast. She wants on. She demands screen time. She's mad as hell, and she's not going to take it anymore. But having Kevin Williamson did you think it was going to be as good as it was? Did you enjoy it? Like, I liked it a lot. Like, I had no idea it was going to be that good, that small, that contained, so little locations, and they pulled it off.
I thought it was economical.
That's a good way to put it.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was well made, well written, well constructed. I think the way everything buttoned up at the end is satisfactory. It was economical. It was good. You know, I wasn't cordyceps blown, but it was solid. Kevin Williamson is still a force.
Yeah, he's still a
force. But if you think about it, he is basically one of the modern forefathers of the slasher. He's a big deal.
He's a huge deal.
He's like John Carpenter level. He invented Scream.
Yeah, and that means everything.
He's a big deal. This is like a nice sort of flex for him. I'd like to see him do something a little bigger.
Yeah, because this was pretty contained. Like, how would this? I don't know how this would have done in theaters, and that was the first thing I thought. Like, if I went in and saw this in theaters, I would have popped only just because I had no idea what I was getting into. But I didn't feel gypped that I didn't see it in a theater.
Well, by the time you saw it in the theater, you would have seen 5 trailers for it.
Right.
That have spoiled the high spots. That's just the way it goes.
And I guess I did.
What happened is you lucked into a nice situation. A really good scenario. It's great. It's nothing better than stumbling onto a movie you've never seen, you know nothing about, and it just gets you complete, and you get the whole experience clean.
Yeah, a Kevin Williamson movie at that.
Yeah.
Like, I just had no idea it was going to be that good. And I'm a fan of the one girl in there. She was in Hung. She played the pimp for Thomas Jane's Pimp. So seeing her in there was a nice surprise.
Oh yeah, that actress.
Yeah. So it was really good, but I didn't know how it was going to get over with basically the P word, right? The pandy. This was all about, like, this is the second movie that basically for me that called, like, you had the Glass Onion that pretty much called it out, and this one called it out too, and made it part of the plot in a way.
Yeah.
This was the biggest tie-in to it at all. I know, B. Rose, you didn't see it, but did you know the whole premise behind it?
No, I really didn't. But I'll tell you what's interesting, though, is there's another show out that my wife and I discovered and love, and it's on streaming. It's on a random little no-name streamer called Freevee.
Freevee? Oh, I did see.
But there's a show called Sprung, and Sprung is from the guy who did My Name is Earl and Raising Hope.
Oh.
And it's set during the pandemic. Basically, these people who are in jail during the pandemic are released because they're releasing people because of the pandemic. But they have to kind of quarantine in this house together. And it's just them kind of dealing with that and trying to keep being criminals in a way. But yeah, that Glass Onion were both, I love the fact that they found a nice way of bringing in the pandemic without scaring the crap out of people.
Ethan Hawke would have, you're good now.
You're good now.
Yeah.
And he's never in the movie again.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That's why the whole time I'm like, oh, it's got to be Ethan Hawke. He's got to be the killer, because there's no way they're going to bring in someone that famous and pay that kind of money to have him just come in and pop a couple shots in people's throats. And
I think it was good. I think, being pandemic related movie, there's some cheap pops in there. You get remember, it's like the toilet paper joke. It's like, remember when there was no toilet paper?
Yeah.
It wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny now.
Yeah, now it's funny.
So they get some of those. But Kevin Williamson, I mean, he knows how to do teen stuff, and he does it well in this one again. It worked good, and the wrap-up was good. Again, it didn't blow my mind, and I think I can see coming in super cold, and it's a solid movie, constructed movie. It's like if you're seeing Megan and you never saw a trailer for it, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, you would have popped big.
Yeah.
There are some
But it was
people that
good.
can do that. That
Yeah.
can, like, I don't want to watch any trailers I know I'm going to see. And I wish I can do that, but I can't. I've tried
If
about...
you go to the movies a lot, you see the trailers, so it's hard to.
Yeah, it's very hard to avoid. So
Yeah.
we have it timed. Cinemark is 22 minutes worth of trailers. Alamo could be anywhere between 13 and 15, and Flicks Brewhouse is 10.
AMC plays 2.5 hours of trailers before every movie.
So it makes it
They play the
impossible.
Nicole Kidman promo like 4 times
Oh,
in between things.
Pause the movie to play more ads.
They do. They pause the movie.
I don't know if that's a shoot or not, but Mike said that Ethan Hawke was nearby shooting Moon Knight and made a day trip to shoot the scene as a favor, which it was great.
Shout out to Rian Johnson. Have you seen the trailer for his show that it's coming out?
Oh, Poker Face?
Poker Face.
Yeah, that was the trailer they showed before.
Oh, they
Sick for
did?
me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that looks good. That
I
looks
liked,
good.
yeah, Russian Doll was really good. So
Yeah.
I like Natasha. So she's really good and have it. Poor Rian Johnson, man. I know he's still fighting on Twitter to this day about The Last Jedi, but there's got to be a part of him was like, if you erase The Last Jedi from his body of work, you'd love everything about Rian Johnson. Like like Mario, you said you like The Last Jedi.
I love The Last Jedi.
You don't have
The
a
Last
hate.
Jedi is mostly good. The reason that The Last Jedi is so hated right now is that there was never an answer to it. There was never a sequel to it.
No, it never had.
Instead,
yeah,
they just made some whatever Rise of Skywalker was. They never followed up. It was like Last Jedi was like in volleyball. It was a setup for somebody to come spike it, and they did nothing. They just
no one spiked it at all.
yeah. They did something complete. They played a different sport.
I think
They were playing lawn darts instead.
I think there's a lot of stuff in The Last Jedi that actually honors the canon more than what's in The Rise of Skywalker. I don't.
For the most part, I think it's good. I only have heat with like 2 scenes. I think there was too much stuff at the casino when they go on the casino side quest, and I just thought that some of the comedy in that first opening scene was really unnecessary. Like, I just think there was a bad choice to do comedy in that scene. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe it was too serious. Maybe Disney said, "Can you tone this down?" And it's like your sister's dying. But I just thought that was a big misstep. Those 2 things. Aside from that, I thought it was a solid movie, and had Disney followed up and plugged some of those holes, answered some of the questions, I think it would be remembered better.
I'm starting to notice the tree scene in The Last Jedi and a lot of inspirational videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And if you go back and watch that tree scene with Yoda, it's great.
Yeah.
It's really good. To me, that felt like Star Wars.
Does he drink the milk in Last Jedi? The blue
Yeah.
milk?
Yeah, he drinks it. Well, and that's the other...
Drinks it right from the source.
Yeah, right from the booby.
Yeah.
And it was and I think a little people had some heat because it was a little bit greenish.
I
instead
mean,
of blue.
it was the choice to take Luke in that way is a choice.
It was a bad choice.
It's a choice. But here's the thing, everything in life. I say this all the time. Everything is pro wrestling. You know it.
Facts.
Everything is pro wrestling. So why do you take Luke in that direction so that eventually he can come back and be the ultimate version of Luke and answer that setup?
Yeah.
And we never got to that.
Nope.
So everything got messed up because, we've talked about it before. There was no 3-movie plan.
No, that was you did chain writing with the thing you just spent $4 billion on. That was pretty risky.
It's risky.
That was very risky.
That's a big risk.
I had a lot of people had more heat with Force Awakens with, the murder of Han Solo. I felt like that was more Star Wars, where I remember when we saw Luke dying at the end of Last Jedi, I was just stunned, but not in a good way, because I felt so cinematic blue balls. I'm like, wait, what? What happens now? I fell for the swerve, and when you found out he was, doing, the whole transporting his consciousness to another, that was totally fine with me. I appreciated that swerve. But then when it just I was like, oh man, this is cool. All right, where are you going? No, never mind. It was just it felt like a...
No, he just dies on a pile of rocks.
Yeah, and that just didn't...
And his body disappears.
And then I think my eyes created something in the distance when that happened. I was like, okay, they're going to fix it now. Something's coming to bring him back. Like I was doing fan fiction on the spot, and that's never a good sign.
I don't know what happened there. Like I don't know. Maybe he had a plan. Maybe I gotta believe there was a plan. Rian Johnson's a good filmmaker.
He's a great filmmaker.
Like everything he's made is pretty awesome. I never Brothers Bloom is probably my least favorite movie of his, but they got no heat with it. It just not my favorite. But like that movie, it just reeks of studio notes and fights and trying to make something just like I don't know. I think that there was. You're right. There was an opportunity missed. They should have done the hologram. Oh, Luke, it's a hologram, and then cut to Luke somewhere actually for real with the lightsaber. Let him get a few licks in. Kill some folks in real life.
Yeah.
And then maybe he could get taken out. But just to die in a pile of rocks alone somewhere.
He inadvertently created the biggest pop of the Mandalorian, though.
Yeah.
Because now people are like, oh, that's the Luke we wanted to see. Because people, especially our age, have been waiting since 1983 to see what would Luke be at full power. And he just didn't take into account how many of those people were going to be there to want to see that.
Well, I think the interesting thing, too, though, that he did, and I mean, I know people have a problem with it, but I honestly, I don't have a problem with the way they handled Luke. Because if you look back at all of the Star Wars films, we have a history of the mentor basically sacrificing and becoming, a mentor from beyond kind of thing. We saw it with Obi-Wan. We saw it with Qui-Gon. And so I think that that was his way of kind of tying, because the sequels are Rey's story. And we saw her lose someone in the first movie. But then we see the person who, he was more of like a father figure. This is her teacher. It's her master.
Yeah.
And she's lost that. And so I think that he was, I feel like he was trying to set that up about this third movie as kind of her having to, and you see a little bit of a glimpse of it at the end, her coming into her own, her having to become who she's meant to be. And I don't think you can do that without having those sacrifices. So I think that's kind of why I didn't mind it as much, because I saw it as they're doing this so that this last movie is about her stepping into becoming the last Jedi and really kind of going all in. And then, of course, they didn't.
They did
because they walked everything back.
Yeah, they walked it back, and that did not.
Somehow Palpatine has returned.
Yeah.
If you watch Screen Crush, that's one of my favorite parts.
When I saw Rise of Skywalker, I remember the pre-credit roll leaked. And I looked it up on Twitter and saw it, and I read it, and I was like, "Oh, this is fake. This is not real. It looked like a joke." And then it was actually in the movie. I was like, "Oh, okay."
You know how everybody goes back and watches like the Marvel pop of like the Avengers Assemble or Captain America getting, Thor's hammer. There's one I still have it on my phone that I still play it, and it was just like Rey Skywalker, and it was one of the theatrical reactions, but it was complete opposite reaction of what should have. And
it was like, "Where's Obi-Wan?"
Yeah, exactly. What about Ben?
I remember that one.
It was so good. And here's the injustice, and I do feel like people hated the prequel trilogy, and now it's beloved. And now people are wondering, is the same thing going to happen with this trilogy? And the answer is no, with an asterisk, because what I do think is going to survive is the best parts of it and the essence. Like Mike says, Kylo killing Luke was supposed to put over Kylo in Act 3. I think looking back, the characters were so good, and you're going to want to see, eventually it's going to, the hate's going to die down, and you're going to want to see a story of, Finn being force sensitive. You're going to want to see more Kylo stuff. Small stuff is going to survive, which is the essence of Star Wars. But the films as a whole are never going to be beloved. But look, people kind of popped a little bit in the Mandalorian trailer when you saw Babu Frick's series, which came from Rise of Skywalker, and people, because he's probably arguably one of the best parts of the Rise of Skywalker was seeing Babu Frick. So I think.
Look, if you do a Babu Frick movie, it'll make $1 billion.
Oh yeah.
Who runs Star Wars? You tag him in that. Just make a Babu Frick movie. No dialogue, just talking in the alien language for 2.5 hours. And C-3PO comes out, and then that's it. That's $1 billion.
Bank transfer is ready.
Cut the check. Cut the check.
I think two of the other things that didn't work for this unfortunately, one was a real tragedy. Is okay, you did the Han Solo dying, and then even if you were like able to justify doing what you did for Luke, they never counted on losing Carrie Fisher in real life. And now you basically had each movie is a representation. Is we're going to take your childhood and we're going to kill them one movie at a time, and it made it mean it took away from the other ones because now you just slowly it turned into like a slow death. Not by anybody could have planned that because Carrie Fisher was supposed to have a much bigger role in that. And I wonder if they could have survived a lot of this backlash back. But one survived thing they couldn't survived was Laura Dern saying Godspeed instead of May the Force be with you. It's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. There's many things that are going to pop up in my brain on my deathbed when I go for a swim in the volcano. And one of them is going to be, why didn't she say May the Force be with you? Why did she say Godspeed? And then done. Then cut to black like The Sopranos.
I think here's where I think they went wrong in Star Wars. If you could go back in time and rewrite it, rebook it, I think they killed Han Solo way too fast. Here's what I would have done. Kill Chewbacca instead. And let Han Solo carry on, and then you have Rey slides into the Chewbacca seat. I mean, it just seemed like that was natural booking. But they had to go. They had to go. Son killing dad. They had to go. Shakespearean Greek tragedy.
Shakespearean.
But no, kill Chewbacca. Can you imagine?
Oh yeah, that would.
How that would rip your heart out.
All right, here's my movie pitch.
All right,
what's the movie pitch?
All right, we're gonna film this. Chewbacca dies just like the dog in John Wick. And then Han Solo goes all John Wick / nobody and just starts killing people.
Yeah.
That would be great.
For at least another 4 movies.
He lost his dog too, and now he's going after him.
I agree.
I think that would be fantastic. Because didn't you guys kind of go in expecting that Han Solo was going to die in the first one? It's just because I just felt like it was part of lore that, Harrison Ford's like, man, you really should have killed me in the last act of Return of the Jedi. And I feel like that's the only way that, JJ got him to come back. Don't worry, we're going to kill you just like you wanted.
As soon as they announced it, I was like, oh, he's dying. He's dying. There's no way he's going to sign up for 2 or 3 films. He's going to come in. I was honestly surprised he was in the movie as much as he was.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that was the trade-off. He had to actually give a crap for once, and then they'll kill him off.
You guys underestimate the power of a bunch of money. The thing is, if you give someone a bunch of money, they'll act in a movie for you. Whatever part, just give them enough money and they'll play whatever part. Harrison Ford, whoever.
Well, that's how you get Anthony Hopkins in Transformers 5.
Or you get Robert De Niro in Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah. Or Al Pacino in, what's the Adam Sandler movie? Jack and Jill.
What movie is he in?
He's in Jack and Jill.
Dude, he's in Jack and Jill.
He plays the love interest. He's basically fallen in love with the female version of Adam Sandler, and he's playing himself, like a fictionized version of himself.
Why is that?
Well, Adam Sandler probably can pay good rates.
Yeah.
He can pay Al Pacino's rate.
Get the Netflix money.
Yeah, he's good.
Why is that coming up all over Twitter now? I mean, TikTok. The Dunkachino song. I got to send you that. It's a brainworm, and I didn't see Jack and Jill, and then I went back. I was like, what is this from? And it was Al Pacino in a fake Dunkin' Donuts commercial singing about Dunkachinos.
I don't know about that one.
Oh man,
I think we can all agree that the best fictional food or drink in any film has got to be Booty Sweat from Tropic Thunder. I have a can of that at my house that I bought, and it literally bright blue says Booty Sweat.
How does it taste?
I haven't tried it. I bought it. It's still sealed.
Oh man, you got to buy one to drink and one to stash, right?
Imagine.
One to play with and one to stash. Yeah, I don't know. Quentin Tarantino has a lot of good. I'd love to go to Kahuna Burgers. If they do,
I want to smoke some red apples.
I want to smoke some red apples. But if they did like he did with movies and got some burgers, if they had a Kahuna Burger pop up, I would be all over that. That would be so good.
Or Jackrabbit Slims.
Oh yeah, that would be so good. Mike, remind us. Yeah, Harrison Ford signed up as Thaddeus Ross, and after William Hurt's passing, so he is not afraid of going back to big budget stuff. But the rumor is he never watches this stuff, right?
Well, no, because the thing is that big budget movies, the movies that have the bigger budgets, they have more money. that they can pay actors to act in the movies. So that's you. When you're an actor, you want to work on the bigger budget movies. That's Hollywood lesson. Hollywood 101.
That's how he ended up in 1923 for Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Just back up that truck to him, and I'll put a cowboy hat on.
Sure. I don't need. He probably doesn't even have a TV. Like, he does not care. He just goes to act.
No, he never watches it because his YouTube reaction video of the first time he watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, wasn't that only like 5 years ago? It was pretty recent too. But is he like RDJ? Like, I remember Robert Downey saying, I don't think I can ever act in a small budget movie again. And I guess he's not about like, this is about my craft. He's like, I can do my craft and get taken care of, like, and have a good crafty of stuff that I actually can eat.
Here, do you know that you heard Quentin Tarantino was getting a lot of heat because he said that people who started Marvel movies were not stars.
Oh, yes, I did see that.
And I listened to that. He said it on, I think it was the Tom Segura podcast.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of heat for that. And I think I was thinking about it. And the more I think about it, the more I think he's just absolutely right. Because who from a Marvel movie is over in anything else? Like, who has another franchise outside of Marvel? Who has a hit movie? Robert Downey Jr. did that Dr. Dolittle movie, and it just went straight in the garbage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Chris Hemsworth, you don't even recognize him if he's not dressed as Thor. You don't even know who he is.
I think, it got a lot of people other work, for sure. And I don't know if Chris Pratt falls under that, because I feel like that did put him in other IPs, but are they considered hits?
I mean, he got Jurassic Park, which is the other main one.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, he was having his moment, and he landed everything. He was the Pedro Pascal of a few years ago.
He was.
Honestly, though, I'll say that I disagree with it. Not in what he's saying, but I disagree with it that it's a Marvel thing. Because if you look at any major franchise, and it's kind of the same thing. People are going there for the characters. Look at Star Wars. Other than Harrison Ford, nobody did anything. Mark Hamill had the Joker, but that was it.
But it wasn't main.
Yeah, I mean, he got work.
That was his voice. Carrie Fisher, unfortunately, didn't have a main. She had movies. She
became a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it's a disservice to say that that people are just going to Marvel for the characters, because honestly, Marvel has done a good job of making movies where nobody has heard of the characters before. That's what's worked for Marvel. All of Marvel's main people were, like, for the MCU, were all lower tier. Iron Man and Thor and even Captain America were not the top tier Marvel.
No, they were not.
It was always, Spider-Man,
Hulk and Spidey were the
X-Men.
A-team.
Hulk was one of the few outliers. And so doing that and then pivoting to, we're going to do the Guardians of the Galaxy and we're going to do Ant-Man because we can. I think that they've done a good job of casting it well enough, because they have to have a good enough cast. But I mean, Chris Evans specifically people are going to see Captain America as Captain America, but there's quite a few people that are going for Chris Evans.
Yeah. I think we were going to do a reaction video on this, and it was a comment on our RRR. No, it was our Tollywood versus Hollywood, and there was a video of SS Ramayuli, and they were talking about the sequel to RRR, and then, like, who he was going to book in it. And he got into it, and he explained it really well. He's like, look, we have to look at this economically. Am I going to pay somebody that's already established a bunch of money to come in there, or am I going to get somebody that you've never seen before? They're coming in with no bad habits. They're coming in, they're going to understand the character and going to do everything we need to do to embody that character, and it's going to pay for itself economically and creatively, rather than somebody who's like, I might want to try this.
I don't know. I have a casting suggestion for Ramayuli. SS Ramayuli, maybe Austin Butler.
Oh, man.
In RRRs.
He's as real as a donut. I'd love to see it, man. I'm excited for that sequel. But Mike brought up another good point. Harry Potter, like, nobody really did anything huge after that. They've done a lot of stuff, but they haven't done stuff that's, like, next level. Like I was saying, Ron Weasley is going to be in Knock in the Cabin, right? And you're seeing Daniel Radcliffe, like, he's popping up in a lot of, like, he did horns.
He's a Weird Al.
Weird Al. So they're getting work.
He's doing edgy stuff. He's trying to be an actor.
The closest they've come is, Emma Watson played Belle in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, that's true.
But Radcliffe he's made the smart decisions where he's just focused on small things that just interest him.
Oh, yeah.
And it's worked.
It's working really well. Like Daniel Radcliffe in Extras with Ricky Gervais was fantastic.
Did you see Guns Akimbo that he was in? Guns Akimbo, that was awesome.
And he's got a great show that he's in called Miracles.
Oh, I know. I haven't seen that.
That's really good. And
he was in the Daniels other movie before they did Everything Everywhere All at Once. He was the farting corpse.
Swiss Army Man. Which if you've
Swiss Army Man.
If you haven't seen that movie is goofy as hell, but it's fun. It's so fun.
The thing about that movie, you really see how good of directors the Daniels are, because there's certain portions of that movie you're just like, it blows you away. You're just like, this is so cool. And it's almost like the whole thing is based on such a preposterous premise that it's disgusting. They do these scenes.
They do
where it's
beautiful and bizarre so well.
When the scene where it's like a montage of them building that fake city, and it's beautiful, and it's just a farting, dead, rotting corpse and a bunch of like sticks. Anyway,
oh, that's so good. I mean, going back to what got us on this train of thought with Quentin Tarantino, I disagree for the simple fact is, and maybe this is specific to us, and I know you guys are like this too. You'll go day one and see a Marvel movie, but I'll also go to a limited screening viewing of any movie because I just love going to the movies. And it doesn't to me, it's a completely different experience. Like we were just talking about, you're going to go to a Marvel movie that feels like an event. Yep, I'm going to be there. But I was also, day one, I was there on Smile. I was so psyched for that. Like we had tickets to go see Skinamarink, and I think we just missed it. I don't know if we're going to have to cancel that live on the air.
I already canceled it.
I did. But again, that was a $15,000 movie. It just has to be interesting.
I kind of wish I would have seen that Smile premiere. I kind of skipped it because I thought the trailer was bad. It didn't interest me.
Well, the big thing, too, is outside of Tom Cruise and maybe Dwayne Johnson, there's not a lot of people in general who you hear, oh, this is their new movie, and you're like, I'm just going to go see it no matter what.
No matter what, yeah.
Usually you need at least a little something.
Denzel Washington, I will go see whatever he's in. Yeah. I do not care.
And usually most people have that. They'll have like those 3 or 4 people who are like, doesn't matter what they do, I'm going to go see it. And so that's why I really think that, for the most part, it's always a mixture of it's got to be someone you like or someone you at least tolerate and the right property.
Yeah.
And you'll get them in the movie. It's not about, having a big... We're way past the era of where all you need to see is the word Schwarzenegger and you go see the film.
Yeah, that doesn't...
And besides Tom Cruise and Dwayne Johnson, you really don't see that anymore.
For modern stuff, yeah, like Mike's saying, like Tom Hanks has a demographic that there are people that'll automatically go see.
Is Tom Hanks still over?
I don't.
He has that Otto movie that nobody cares about that's out right now.
Like, no, I don't think he is like he used to be. But,
I think he's just doing what he wants to now.
Yeah, I think
he did that Pinocchio movie that was terrible.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie though, I got a little bored with him very quickly in the Elvis movie with the accent. I was just like, all right.
He was probably the worst part of the Elvis movie.
Oh,
right?
really?
Yeah, I was not. I was just.
It was a weird choice.
Yeah.
I guess they needed a name in that role, and he was going to be under heavy makeup, so not everybody doesn't appeal to everybody. But yeah, he's kind of like the worst part of that movie.
He ended up looking like Leguizamo in Spawn.
Oh God!
They just put a giant fat suit on him and then just kept adding on, and just it was really odd. I mean, it's still Tom Hanks, so he's still great.
It's a terrible accent.
Yeah,
he doesn't really do a good accent. I don't know. It's just like it's Tom Hanks in a Nutty Professor suit.
Okay.
So I don't know. That didn't quite work.
I'm going with for me, like this day and age, and it's funny that it's coming from Quentin Tarantino that he says there's no more movie stars anymore that you want to go see that. Because to me, and Mario, you talked about it, you don't trust logos, but I will go see a movie from a studio, but more than that, I'll go see a movie because of the director.
Yeah, for sure.
Over the actor.
Yeah.
Because I like, to me, I feel like Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio are so smart when it comes to picking their properties of what they're going to act in. But again, that doesn't guarantee I'm going to go see it, even though I know they always crush it. But I am going to go see it if they're in a Quentin Tarantino movie. And I was felt that from day one, like when Inglourious Bastards, I'm like, with Brad Pitt, I was like, this has got to be phenomenal.
This is where I always feel has been Dwayne The Rock Johnson's downfall. He refuses to pair up with, I mean, whenever he pairs up with a really good director that knows how to use him, it's great. Like his best stuff, I mean, but going backwards, Pain and Gain, he's awesome in Pain and Gain.
Oh, so good.
And he takes risks. He's willing to, you know, not just be, you know, clean cut Dwayne. Southland Tales,
another one.
Like it, you can, whether or not you like the movie, it's up to debate.
The Get
He's
Shorty,
great in
right?
it though. He was in Get Shorty. He played a gay Samoan rapper.
Yeah. Man, that was so good again.
His early stuff was kind of, he did that movie Faster, which I think is way underrated.
Yeah.
It's kind of confusing, but like it's a great movie for Dwayne to be in. And somewhere he's just started doing these vanilla roles where he's just like tugboat captain or ex-cop with a wooden leg. And it's just like, you know, he's not taking any risks.
No, there's no risk.
And I think that's the big thing is he doesn't have to, so he doesn't.
Yeah.
Because like if you look back, like he's got a solid filmography from the earlier days when he was trying to prove himself. Like honestly, The Rundown is one of the best action
Rundown's
films.
great, but you know what? Why? Because of the director.
Exactly.
And he did have Arnold Schwarzenegger gave him the rub in the first 5 minutes.
He did, yeah.
It was really good. But here's the thing. Because of the fact, I think that Dwayne The Rock has been doing these roles, in a way, he kind of buried himself. And that's why Black Adam totally tanked. Because he did Black Adam as The Rock, as what he always does. He was not trying to do a character. He was just doing himself as Shazam. Not Shazam. Black Adam.
So you think he booked himself into a corner?
Exactly. You know, he put himself over. So he was doing his own booking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Putting himself over, and like not having to do anything. He was just showing up for the shoots and being Dwayne. Like he's got to explore more characters, and he's got to get with a director that I think the director that he's worked with before that he should revisit is Peter Berg. We just talked about The Rundown.
Oh yeah, Peter
totally
Berg.
knows.
Yeah.
He knew how to use The Rock. That was one of his best movies for sure. I don't know.
Here's the thing with The Rock, and I tell this story all the time when I first met him, and like the person I talked to back in 1996 is the same person I still see on social media talking to his fans. He's so nice and he's so likable, and he's honestly is a good guy, and I think now he's really leaning into that, and that's not going to be conducive to taking chances because he might not be interested in that little golden statue, which he probably would get if he started taking these Batista roles. Because like you said, is he a better actor than Batista? Because Batista's like, I don't want to be like Dwayne Johnson, and Batista thinks he's a better actor. But is he? If The Rock was in Glass Onion playing that role, that Batista's role, like you talked about this, Mara, the side by side, is that even more so? Like if The Rock would have did that, people would have flipped out on how good he would have been. So is he really not as good of an actor as Batista, or is he not taking those chances?
I think that The Rock is definitely a better actor than Batista. I get no heat with Batista. I think he's great, but I think The Rock is a more talented actor. I think he has more range. I think he can do some special stuff, and he's done it before.
Yeah,
he's done.
We know he's done it.
He's done roles, and I think. But if you look, Batista takes big swings. Everything he does, he wants to be. Even that movie he did with Zack Snyder with the zombies in Vegas.
Oh yeah,
which was kind of strange. He's taking big swings in there. He's trying to act.
Yeah, he's definitely leaning into the craft, and The Rock is taking care of his fans who've got him this far, you know, that has this big following that he can have an energy drink and he can have tequila. But even like he doesn't like the most you've seen of like a heel Rock in Hollywood was the almost feud with Vin Diesel that pretty much got squashed, and he will not acknowledge it in person because he's too good of a guy. He's going to make sure that he's not besmirching somebody, but at the same time he's not going to do the job. So what's going to get him to take that chance? I don't know, but like if he ever wanted that little golden man, maybe that, but I don't think he's going to ever. I don't think that's his personality. He wants to be the best, and he is the highest paid actor in Hollywood, so I guess that kind of is the upper echelon for him.
Well, going back to what you said too, Mario, like when you look at like the rundown, Peter Berg kind of knew what to do with him. And then if you look at it, it's one of the most underrated things he's done, but Berg was also one of the directors and producers of Ballers, which is a fantastic show that he's in.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize
Ballers.
that.
And it's a good piece of character work where he's playing something that, granted, it almost is kind of like a typecast of him, but he does some really good work in that, not playing Dwayne Johnson, playing
You're
someone
right.
who's
I
similar
forgot
to him.
Ballers is that because
But-
he takes and like you saw him eating pain pills and having uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, but Berg is one of the heavy forces in that too. He's one of the main
I
producers
forgot
and
that
stuff.
he was a producer in that, and he knew how to use them. That's a good point. And Rock does look at himself as like now as an attraction. And Mike's asking, is Ryan Reynolds that same thing? Is Ryan Reynolds an attraction? Would you go see a movie just because it's Ryan Reynolds? Maybe he's the star that we neglected and didn't bring up.
Well, Ryan Reynolds has become just Ryan Reynolds now. He's also like everything he does, he's just Ryan Reynolds.
Right? Yeah.
Some sort of like spin-off version of his Deadpool sort of persona. That's just what he is right now.
Yeah.
And whatever he's in, it's almost like he's almost aware of the fact that he's in a movie all the time.
Yeah.
So maybe he is an attraction. I can see that.
That would be the closest one that you were thinking. What about the only other one I was thinking is Will Ferrell? Do you go automatically see a movie because it's Will Ferrell's in it?
Not anymore. I don't think he's over anymore.
Yeah, no. I think he burnt a lot of that goodwill with Holmes and Watson, which is one of the most unwatchable movies there is.
Really?
I don't walk out of movies. I've literally walked out of 2 movies my entire life. Holmes and Watson was close.
Really?
And with Holmes and Watson, the only reason I stayed because my wife wanted to go like 30 minutes in.
Really?
But I was like, you know what? I've already paid the money for it. I'm staying. I was like, I'm not quitting on this one. The only 2 movies I've ever quit on.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what are the 2 movies you walked out on?
So I won't say I walked in it, but I stopped watching because I didn't get to see it in the theater. I was younger. The English Patient.
Oh, really?
But that was more of a spite one. I was pissed off that it beat Shawshank for all the awards, so I was already mad at that one. The only film I've literally ever walked out of a theater for was Cats.
Really?
I went and saw that on... I won't say I went and saw it. We snuck in because I wasn't going to pay for it because I knew it was going to be bad. But literally, like we lasted 10 minutes, and I was like, it's not even worth it for free.
That's bad. It's just like, we got this free copy of More Better Blues. You want it? It's free? Yeah. You don't have to pay anything? Yeah. No, thank you.
And everyone's like, oh, this is going to be like one of those cult classics that you hate so you watch it. I'm like, no, it's not. It will not be that.
Mario's the only one that'll walk out on a movie that he's liking. That's still my favorite. That's still my favorite story. He's like, oh, I get it. I see where you can say, you want to go? Like, yeah. I get it. I'm done.
Well, that's what I love about these movie subscriptions. I can just go watch the first half.
What was that movie? It was pretty recent. You're like, okay, I get it. And then you left and you're like, it was good.
Oh, I went to go see like Banshees of Inisherin, and I watched like the first 45 minutes. It's like, oh, this is good. All right, I'm gonna get the rest later on HBO Max.
Dude, that's one of my favorite stories. Like, I get it. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm the completist. I will fall asleep in the movie before I walk out. I've never walked out on a movie. I've never done it.
I walked out on Jumanji 1 and 2. Not because I was mad. It's okay. The movie's all right. It's just.
I do remember one of the first movies I fell asleep with was the Trolls with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and I fell asleep in it. And now isn't that like a cult classic? But I was like, I just remember.
Justin Timberlake.
Was it? No, it was it was an 80s, the 80s Trolls.
Oh.
Troll, not Trolls singular. Trolls singular, not Trolls plural. I remember falling asleep, but I've never walked out on a movie.
I have fallen asleep in one movie, and it was on a date, and it was literally the worst date movie I could have taken someone to see. And then we fell asleep. It's because I was in church at the time, and she was a preacher's daughter. So we went and saw Jonah, the VeggieTales movie. And I passed out 30 minutes into that movie and woke up at the end. And I was like, what happened? I have no idea.
The veggies died at the end. They ate them.
Jonah led the vegetables to freedom.
All the veggies spoiled.
The vegans got them.
I don't understand. I fall asleep in movies all the time.
I do now. If I'm at home, I do all the time now.
I mean, I'll sleep in movies it just happens. You can't control it. You want to go see a movie, you can only make it to late show, you end up falling asleep, you know?
Yeah, and falling asleep in the movie is not indication that the movie's not good. That just is indication that you're not
Well, it's also
sleep.
the theaters now, they got reclining seats and everything.
Yeah, and
like
they're
that.
all soft leather.
And it's like 3 margaritas before the trailers, and it's just like, it happens.
It's a softer place to lay than the bed you have at home.
Yeah, they keep it nice and cool in there.
And then freaking Movie House and Eatery started handing out blankets.
Oh, yeah, that's how you get pillows.
Them in the Domain, they'll give you like a blanket, a pillow.
Yeah, I mean, how would they just cut out the movie?
That's a genius marketing, because now they're like, all right, we're going to put you to sleep, so you have to pay again to come see the movie again.
Yeah.
Now, like vibrating chairs, and I noticed in iPick, they don't recline as far anymore, and I wonder if people were snoring.
They may as well be walking by with glasses of warm milk. Warm milk and Tylenol PM. Here you go.
Go to sleep. Don't worry.
This is too relaxing. I think the very first, obviously fell asleep tons of times at the movies with double features at a drive-thru because you were sitting outside of your car in those very specific beach chairs. So those were always very sleep. You know, I think Mario, we were talking about
those multicolor fabric chairs.
Yeah, and they go in different directions.
And they always come in awkward sizes.
Yes, exactly.
It's like you grab one and it's like, oh, this is for a 4-year-old.
We were encouraged to fall asleep because you'd have a double feature and the second one would be Dressed to Kill at the drive-in theater. It's like, you can go to sleep during that movie, so don't sleep. It's like, you don't need to stay awake for that.
Well, it's like the ones who do the Marvel marathons where they do all of the films in one, and they pick the movies like, all right, we know Incredible Hulk we can sleep through. We can sleep through this one and then this one. Like Thor Dark World, perfectly fine. Sleep through that one and then stay awake for the rest of them.
Yeah. I don't want to sleep through a movie. I'd like to stay awake. So
I would like to do it.
It just kind of happens.
Did you, Mario, you've been to, and I don't know, B. Rose, if you've been to the Button-umathon, have people fall asleep through there? Have you guys sat in on those?
I haven't been to one directly. I know someone who has, and I've followed them. Yeah, there's tons of people sleeping like in the aisles.
I haven't. I never went to the Button-umathon, but I went to for a while there before Alamo got bought by Chili's. Like they used to do like marathon movies. Like there was one time I went to one where it was, I want to say 4 or 5 Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, like unannounced. They just played them without announcing them. And then the last movie they played was the new Jean-Claude Van Damme movie at the time, which I don't remember what it was. But we did that. So you're in there for hours and hours. Like, I mean, we had to be in there for at least 8 hours. And the thing about the theater is it starts to get funky in there. It's a lot of people in a room getting sweaty, you know? You eat those nachos, you sweat. You know what I mean?
Comes out your pores.
You have a few beers, you get a buzz, you sober up, you take a nap, you wake up, no, don't brush your teeth. It just gets funky in there.
It does,
you know what I mean?
It pushes through your pores.
So I can't even imagine what 24 hours was like. I might have to bail.
That would be it. Like JJ says here, it sounds like people just needed a place to take a nap. But if people are taking a nap in the theaters, but they're laying in the aisles, that might be the draw. It reminds me of what my buddy said, and I don't know if this is a copyrighted joke, but apologize if it is. But he's like, goes up to his friend, he's like, "Hey, please don't pee in my pool." He's like, "Come on, what are you kidding? Everybody's peeing in your pool." He's like, "Yeah, but you're the only one doing it from the diving board." That's our go home spot. There. All right, good, man. Well, this is fun, man. I think we started off on Vote for Pedro Day, and we went down many, many fun dirt roads. So, B-Rose, thanks for coming on here, man. The Last of Us. I told him you're the first of us talking about The Last of Us, and thanks for the sweet swag, man. We gotta populate our coming soon site on our website where it's saying here's where you're gonna buy the merchandise. But we got hats, we got swag, we got stickers, we got patches. So again, we had Anthony on here. We sent him, so we're hoping we're going to see those stickers.
I've never had swag before.
Yeah, the swag is great. I love hats. Clearly, I love hats. So if you got a beanie and it's that, so man, thank you so much. But we're gonna have more sweet swag coming. So man, thanks for coming in and thanks for bearing gifts.
Definitely, I can't wait. I definitely want to come back because we're gonna have to keep talking about Last of Us. As it
Oh
goes
yeah,
on.
for sure. Like the tip of the iceberg, and this was only episode 1. So
Yeah.
in your honor, we're gonna give you the final spot. Like we'll do the go home spot before Mario cuts to that sweet bumper. So we're gonna let you do a countdown to 10, but maybe at number 10 or number 9, he's gonna cut you off. First, you're gonna do that Ellie countdown.
So am I gonna count up?
Yeah, you're gonna count up, and then Mario, you're gonna cut him off right when he gets to that Ellie high spot.
I have to do it slowly and
you have to
clearly, like
do
in
it.
the show.
Yeah, exactly.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,